Hi everyone and welcome to this special SkyPunk review. I am your host Ryan Clark. I am joined with the fabulous Con Nemo, and you're probably wondering we've got a brand new face in this particular video. And just like Bash of the Beach 96, we've got ourselves our third man. It is my honor to introduce the newest member of the SkyPunk team, Mr. Aaron Walker. How you doing, Aaron? You okay?
Hey guys, how you doing, guys?
Yeah, not too bad.
Happy to be here. Can't wait.
And how about yourself, Colin? Everything good with yourself over there?
Yeah, everything's good. We're just sitting here ready to rumble.
We certainly are.
Oh, yes.
And rumble, it will happen, because for the first time ever, we're going to be reviewing a wrestling pay-per-view. Now, for us, it's kind of been a thing where, for us here, especially myself, Colin, and Aaron, we've all been fans of wrestling for quite some time. And because of that, we kind of thought with a certain recent pay-per-view event that certainly surpassed, usually a quite influential one at the beginning of the year, we kind of thought it would be the perfect opportunity to review it, because we review games, we review TV, film, anime, so why don't we give wrestling a crack? So for us, this is simply a pilot at the moment. So if you do like the episode, then please do consider giving the video a like and also subscribing. It does really help us. For us, it gives an indication of whether you want to see more of this, and yeah, hopefully we do well. So yeah. So let's jump. Let's just in terms of Rumble, because obviously it's quite an infamous event. It started since 1988, first won by Hacksaw Jim Duggan, first ever, and over the years, and it's been the staple point of WWE's kind of calendar. It's been considered one of the big four, along with WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series, and most importantly, for a number of years, it was considered to be the one of the key events, mainly because of the Royal Rumble match, because if you win the match, you win an opportunity to face the world champion in the main event at WrestleMania. Now, obviously, because they have 4 Rumbles, they have 2 Rumbles now. Obviously, it's kind of like a who's the best kind of thing. But certainly, it's been a staple point. And for this, there have been many Rumbles. So I'm going to go over to my fellow comrades, and I'm just going to simply ask them, do you have a favorite Rumble year or a match that sticks out? We'll start off with Aaron, since he is obviously new to the video. So is there one that you have in mind?
Off the top of my head, 2001. There's a lot riding on the pay-per-view going into it. There was a lot to set up for WrestleMania, because, as you said, Royal Rumble was a pivotal pay-per-view, not for just because of the Royal Rumble match. It is the biggest part, but it is the beginning of the road to WrestleMania, the biggest season in WWE's calendar in any year. The Royal Rumble was the starting point. Not only that, but the Royal Rumble match and matches that precede the Royal Rumble match will usually set the tone for what's going to happen at WrestleMania and on the way to WrestleMania. And for me, 2001 was one of the best examples of that. Because not only did you have feuds beginning, you had feuds ending. Obviously, a smattering of undercard matches, namely the best being Chris Jericho versus Chris Benoit in a ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship. Obviously, not given the respect it really deserves because of the controversy surrounding Chris Benoit, which I understand completely. But the match itself is absolutely incredible, one of the best ladder matches ever put on. The Rumble match itself had everything. It was the match where Kane cemented his legacy and his record of eliminating, I believe, 11 men in one match. It had hardcore elements. It was the first Rumble where the hardcore element had been added. It was weapons. You had hardcore superstars like Raven, Goldust, guys like that. But also you had, going into the Rumble, the ongoing feud between Triple H and Stone Cold Steve Austin, which had been feud coming from the previous year's attack angle with Stone Cold, Triple H and Rikishi. So both of those guys were fighting each other going into the pay-per-view, going into the Rumble match itself. This then led to an attack during the Rumble. And not just that, but also transpired in a kind of half and half way, as Austin ended up winning the Rumble, eliminating Kane last to book himself a one-way ticket to WrestleMania. Obviously, Triple H and Stone Cold would finish their feud at No Way Out the following month before Stone Cold went to face on The Rock at WrestleMania, which again is another incredible match. Therefore, coming from Stone Cold's win at Royal Rumble being so much more important because of what then happened afterwards. So for me personally, I'd say 2001, but the Rumble has been known as being a very exceptional pay-per-view for many reasons. But 2001 for me.
And it would be hard not to agree with you. I mean, certainly it was, like I say, at the pinnacle moment near the final age of the Attitude Era. It's is certainly one of the gems in the Royal Rumble legacy, definitely. So you've picked a worthy choice there, Mr. Walker. Love it.
Thank you very much.
And how about yourself, Colin? Did you have a particular Rumble year or match in mind?
Probably for the Rumble year, the one that sticks in my mind is obviously the 2006 Rumble, purely because that was the year the first Rumble, obviously without Eddie Guerrero, and the fact that Rey Mysterio came in, I think it was second, I want to say, and probably most fans would have wanted him to win because he did dedicate it to the late great Eddie. But the fact that he went on to win it was just one of those kind of emotional Rumbles that always stuck with me because of just what Ray was doing it for, and it was such a nice touch for everything that Eddie had achieved up to that point, that I just think it was just the icing on the cake. But it also had other good matches. I mean, like, there was Edge and John Cena for, I think it was the World Heavyweight, and like their feud was always a banger as well. You couldn't go wrong with them two. Which is, it's good to think about Edge back then, considering he's back now. But yeah, no, definitely 2006 for that emotional side for me was just was always sticks in my mind.
No, definitely. I remember the road to WrestleMania 22 being very, very, very hyped. I remember. So for me, certainly a worthy choice there, Colin. Great. Well, you guys are just picking them out all. I'm trying to think which one's mine.
I was going to say, I want to know what your favourite one was. I want to know now.
Yeah. So for me, I think there have been some great Rumbles over the years. Certainly some great matches. I'm going to be cheeky, and I am going to say an honourable mention before I announce my favourite. Not to feel bad now. So I think an honourable mention would be the Last Man Standing match between Triple H and Shawn Michaels at the Royal Rumble 2004. Yes. They had been feuding since SummerSlam 2002, and it was considered to be the cutoff point at that, and they went to a draw, which would eventually lead to, because I think Shawn Michaels and Triple H were like, we need to finish this, and we're going to do it on the grandest stage of them all. And then, of course, 2004 Rumble was won by Benoit, making that a triple threat. And certainly with that, again, similar situation from what Aaron said, where the Rumble was, it's not seen in the same light. But again, you had a great caliber match. All three people worked incredibly well from a wrestling standpoint, and I haven't watched it in a number of years, but I know it in my heart to be one of the premier WrestleMania main events from my personal standpoint. But if I had to go with a pay-per-view, actually, can't say pay-per-view because there have some really awkward moments in it, but it'd probably be Royal Rumble 2000. Certainly, very much a very in-your-face kind of pay-per-view. We had, I think there was Taz versus Kurt Angle, I think, opening the show, I think. I might be wrong.
No, you are right. You are right.
Yeah, sometimes I'm doubting myself. And then, of course, who could forget the street fight between Cactus Jack and Triple H? And absolutely, I think it was, I thought Hell in a Cell 98 set the bar, and then they were like literally just knocking on the glass, going like pretty much at the breaking point. And I guess in opinion, it's whether it's broken through or whether it just held. I guess that is something for debate, but great. And then obviously you had the triple threat with Jericho and China and Hardcore Holly, which was still good. Jericho was still fresh in, and the Rumble, you had the infamous botched ending. There's various other things as well, like Taka falling flat on his face. So, but yeah, I could probably talk on for ages, but I am gonna stop before I turn this conversation very much into.
All I can think of when I think of is not only Taka Michinoku, Tachimi. Oh my god, Tachimi.
Sorry, man.
Oh my
Good.
god. Taka Michinoku was Jerry the King Lawler's insistence on the replay being played over and over again throughout the match. And it's the last time they play it when he's like, watch your face, watch your face. Boink. As he smacks. 5 stars. 5 stars just for that. Oh.
I love it. I'm going to have to rewatch that at some point.
Yes. Oh, so good.
Yeah. So yeah, some great memories there. I'm sure if we, if this becomes a regular thing, maybe we can delve into some of those classic rumbles a bit. So we'll, but thank you very much, gents, for your recommendations. I appreciate that. But yeah, so we'll first of all go into this year's rumble. So certainly, going into the rumble was interesting, and it very much looked like it was doomed to fail in a sense. Now, I guess for me, I always keep with wrestling pay-per-view, especially with WWE, since watching them for over 2 decades, and definitely with the more recent years kind of being a bit more, kind of on edge. No pun intended, of course. But with this year, there were certain matches in there that we kind of thought, oh, I mean, who would like to speak first about this?
Well, before we delve into the thoughts in regards to the matches, one thing I will say that really kind of intrigued me and worried me going into the pay-per-view was this was the last pay-per-view with the Big Four that hadn't already been done in front of a crowdless crowd, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series, we'd already seen a crowdless pay-per-view. Royal Rumble, however, last year was able to go ahead with a crowd. And for me, as much as the matches are incredible and the Royal Rumble is always incredible, part of the spectacle of the Royal Rumble is the crowd reactions to the surprise entrance. Now, this year, WWE tried to subvert expectations by already announcing Edge as number 1 and Edge returning again. Randy Orton as number 2, so we knew that would be a continuation of their feud. As well as announcing the women's number 30, kind of taking some of the surprise out, because without the crowd element there, it's going to be quite different. Before jumping on to the ending, I'll say it turned out to not be that much of a worry, luckily, because even with the crowd visually, maybe with the piped-in crowd, even with the crowd sitting there being like, or ooh, it still kind of works, especially when there were some of the returns. You see people go on their screen, it works.
See the sides pop up.
Exactly, yeah. It's kind of odd, but it worked. So on that level, that was good. In regards to the matches, though, Royal Rumble is always, as much as it's the beginning of the road to WrestleMania, they will have some filler matches in there because it's building up to other pay-per-views. So you'll have a champion defending just against an opponent. Now, luckily this year, you only had 3 championship matches on the main card.
Yes.
2 World Championships and the SmackDown Women's Championships, which, not to say the Intercontinental or United States or anything like that aren't worthy championships. They were the bigger championships. But when you talk of championship matches and Royal Rumble 2021, obviously Goldberg versus Drew McIntyre was on every wrestling fan's mind.
Definitely.
The last, I believe, 2 times that Goldberg had come back for a world title feud was Kevin Owens, and he won, absolutely dismantling Kevin Owens' run up to that point. And the next time was The Fiend, Bray Wyatt.
Oh,
absolutely incinerating anything that Bray had done up to that point. And again, that was the worry that I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that you guys had as well, was that was exactly what was going to happen this year. Drew McIntyre gone from being the chosen one, dropped by WWE, gone onto the independent scene, become an incredible talent, a massive draw, comes back to WWE, finally wins the Rumble, wins the world title. Losing to Randy Orton was fine because he eventually gained it back, and that was a great feud. just to then potentially drop it to Goldberg for some kind of nostalgia-based WrestleMania match. So that was a big worry for a lot of people going in, for me especially. I'm not sure about you guys if there's any other worries you had, but for me, that Goldberg match was a worry.
Yeah, I think I know, Colin. I think you had some words. I think with you, if the outcome went one way, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest issue I had was going to be the Goldberg match. Pretty much what I'm saying, like, it was all the same issues. I had worries about the crowd, but I felt like that kind of worked to WWE's advantage this year with what they did, that we'll get into. But especially with the Goldberg one, especially with what it normally means when this kind of part-timer like himself or Brock or The Rock, when he done it years ago, like whenever these guys do it, they're almost coming back because they're guaranteed that title shot, getting a run to Mania, and then disappearing for another year. Like, it normally happens that I was just like, if this happens again, I'm hitting the point where I'm finished with this product, because it's too much of a cash in, and it's not only taking another wrestler that's there all year round, taking their chance away. It's also just throwing everything that champion has done in the bin, because all these amazing athletes are not worthy to take the title off him, but a part-timer is that's had his heyday. Like, it's just not. I mean, I could talk for hours about it, but another match I was worried about was Kevin Owens, Roman Reigns. I know there was a bit of a feud there, but I felt like it had ran its course a little bit. For me, I felt like when that got announced, the switcheroo was kind of cool, but at the same time, I was like, I feel like SmackDown's not developing enough top level talent just now that they went back to Kevin Owens. So I was always worried about that, feeling more samey as well. But again, I was kind of glad that there was only 3 championship matches, because WWE's maybe got a habit of squeezing as much as they can in and not giving matches time. I was actually, as much as I feel sorry for the other champions that can't make it, it was good that they kind of turned it down so that they could give, hopefully, these matches a decent run to like tell their stories. And I think out of all the champions, these 3 matches were the only ones that had any serious like hype behind them, like work built into them. All the others were just kind of like half-arsed a wee bit. Do you know what I mean? There wasn't any real serious builds to any other titles.
No, definitely. I think with it's certainly demotivating. I think that's more of an indicative problem with WWE's ability to be able to build stars. Now, obviously, they've been able to prove that they have. It is we've had it, but we have so many legacies from wrestlers who have done well, even in the modern era as well. But you hear about and you see these kind of things where they go, oh, this thing's happening, and then next week you're like, well, where are they? What's going on? And it's, I mean, to be fair, I know that's a conversation for another time, but I feel your pain, Colin, and I think it's something that's in the back of our minds where we're stood there going, you don't want it to pan out in the typical way. And I think on reflection of watching the Rumble, which we'll obviously be diving into, I think it kind of worked in its favor in a kind of in like a reverse psychology kind of way, because I think many people were they had these expectations, and then with the results, I think there was at least some form of surprise in at least one match, I would say. But that's just from my point of view. Obviously, I know it's a little bit different for everyone else, but I felt it kind of worked in that favor, which was kind of cool. So, but yeah, I think certainly with this, the card. I mean, to be fair, this is the smallest card I think we've seen from a Rumble since I think about 2013. I think, which I know because that was the CM Punk Rock one, and they only had 4 matches. So. I think, and also the fact it isn't 4 or 5 hours long like we've seen from previous years. So kind of down to 3 hours, a classic pay-per-view length, I think was a breath of fresh air, because we would have been exhausted otherwise, I think. We've, even like Manias before, I mean, I had to split Mania into 2 last year. So it's, it speaks for itself. It's just, but that's another conversation. I'm going this, and this is the great thing about wrestling. We could just talk about it for ages, but we're in a we're in a bit of a we've got a time limit, so we'll jump first of all. So we'll I think we'll quickly just brush over the pre-show match because I think I only just watched the highlights. I don't know if you guys watched it at all.
Yeah, I missed it.
My decision to watch a Rumble on a Sunday was kind of based on the fact that we had nothing else to watch at the time. So I think I joined in about 1:45 or 12:15, whenever the show kicked off. I can't remember. And I managed to catch the end half of the pre-show match.
Yeah,
wasn't brilliant at all. And to me, as much as the match was the Women's Tag Team Championships, just for anyone that doesn't know, it was Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler challenging Charlotte and Asuka for the Women's Tag Team Championships. But for me, the whole match, as much as Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler would go on to win the match and recapture the Women's Tag Team titles, the whole story was built around Lacey Evans, Ric Flair, and Charlotte. Because ultimately, Lacey Evans and Ric Flair's interference in that match is what caused or what led to, Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax winning. And to me, the match just felt like the only purpose it had was to push that feud, not so much. We've seen before WWE be able to do the both, be able to have a match and have a feud that ends that then immediately leads into another feud. I think, as you said, Brian, ironically, it's just off the top of my head when you mentioned Royal Rumble 2004, you had the Triple H Shawn Michaels feud, and then with Chris Benoit winning, they were able to combine the two, but that worked naturally. This, to me, felt kind of shoehorned, and the match itself wasn't anything special. From a wrestling purist standpoint, as I've trained and done some wrestling myself, Charlotte hit natural selection on Shayna and Nia together, which I can imagine from a physical point doing at the same time would be difficult, but it looked god-awful. It was, and I expect so much better from Charlotte. And to me, that was just the best way to describe how the pre-match went, was that one move just looking awful. It was pointless.
Yeah, it's a shame with that because I know that with and also as well, I think the one thing I did see was there was like a pre-show segment with Asuka and Charlotte Flair and and I think they were saying I think Charlotte said, "Oh, we're best friends," and I laughed because I just had WrestleMania 34 in my head, and when they had their Women's Championship match, and I was just kind of like, "Oh," and then obviously knowing the Lacey Evans and Ric Flair stuff. I just it seemed to overshadow everything. And the one thing I did see was that Shayna Baszler did get hit by the natural selection twice, and she kicked out. So I think in some way she is being built with some form of strength. It's like, you've kicked out a natural selection twice. So with that, if there is any sort of continuity to go by here, I mean, Shayna does come out a little bit stronger, but the match itself doesn't do anything to benefit any of them, really. It's just more to kind of bring on the show that is Lacey and Rick, and I'm not really appealed by that. Colin, did you have any thoughts at all, or did you watch the match?
No, I missed the match, but I caught up when I looked into it a bit more. But I think it was Aaron kind of hit the nail on the head. Was like there was only real one purpose to this, and that was to get the tag titles off Charlotte Flair and Asuka, because they're not really a team. Asuka's got the women's title; she needs to run with that. They obviously wanted Charlotte to maybe build with Lacey, maybe towards a WrestleMania match. It's that kind of season now that they could be working to that nobody really get a shine. It was just an excuse to get the titles off them, and even making Baszler look like badass, like kicking out. Like, you've still strapped a tag title to her. Like, she's got a partner. You're not really giving me the confidence that you're going to actually build her strong, because you're going to leave her in the kind of obscurity of your tag division that you're not really bothered with. So it was almost it was on the pre-show because it was a throwaway match, and it's done what it's did to free up Charlotte and Asuka for their single runs. But where the tag team champions go from now, I can't see.
No, it's I mean, I guess we'll have to see. It's just, Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, I will kind of hold my hands up, and with the women's tag division, it's not really had much of my attention or appreciation, I would say, um, more recently. But I mean, with it, I mean, there's always opportunity, and I'll always give the benefit of the doubt. But it's just that consistency of if it continues to,
Yeah,
kind of derail, then it's just going to lose investment. But
yeah. I
we can,
completely agree about the consistency because you can say the Iconics winning was amazing.
yeah,
Everything they did with that tag team title run was amazing. Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross was quite nice. They were a duo no one ever thought would work, but did. But I agree at the moment, the women's tag division, nothing against being female at all or anything like that. It purely is that division has no real focus on it. So as Colin said perfectly, it was a throwaway match. That's why it was on the pre-show.
yeah, exactly. We'll I think we'll put it there because I think that's pretty much all we're willing to talk about that match. So we'll talk about the first match of the night, and it was a big one, which is for the WWE Championship. It was Drew McIntyre versus Bill Goldberg. So yeah, so obviously the build coming up to it, Goldberg was like, it was about kind of like disrespect and all those kind of things, which I was like, okay. So yeah, I just kind of went. I kind of went with that. I was like, okay, cool. So I didn't really think. I just saw it more as Drew McIntyre versus Goldberg. I didn't really see anything else from the build that kind of intrigued me. Video package was good. I thought it was, I thought it was pretty good. WWE have always had a very consistent run with their video packages, I feel. So it did hype me up for the match. And I think from there, I mean, from what I expected from the match, it delivered, which was a short experience.
Yeah.
I think I remember it was, so the match didn't officially start. They kind of brawled around the outside. There was a spear through the barricade, which broke it down. And for me, I was kind of thinking in my head, 3 finishes, OMG moment in a WWE video game, oh my God, and just, yeah. So, and then obviously there were a number of finishes, of course, a couple of spears from Goldberg, jackhammer, which didn't look as smooth, and I just had flashbacks to his match with The Undertaker, and I was like, please just land it, please, just for heaven's God. Which, nothing against Goldberg, it's just, I think when I saw that, I mean, to be fair, in those circumstances, he was concussed in that match with Taker. So, but when you see something, you just have that little bit inside you, a little bit of doubt, and but yeah, and then obviously Drew kicked out very efficiently, and then I think he hit, I think it was 2 or 3 claymores. I'm very sorry, I can't remember. I just remember being very quick and kind of going, oh, and yeah, and that was it. 1, 2, 3, and Drew McIntyre retains the title. So I will say, we'll go over to Colin, a fellow Scotsman, I know. Yeah, what were your thoughts on the match? Like, was it, was the short experience okay for you, or were you just relieved that Drew managed to retain the title?
I was more shocked that Drew retained the title. I was actually, it's one of those ones where I actually think Vince needs a pat on the back, because whatever temptation he might have had, he didn't pull the trigger. He left the title on Drew, which was by far the right way to go, and the only real way to go after everything that's happened. I've got tons of issues with the match, because it goes back to other full-time wrestlers not getting this spot, and the minute you put somebody like Goldberg, and don't get me wrong, the guy is still in incredible shape, but you're not going to get any more than 5 minutes out of this guy. And like, all these full-time wrestlers could put on 10, 15 minutes, 4 5-star worthy matches if given the time. That you're not getting anywhere close to a 5-star match. You're not getting any more than 5. And the problem is now, you said it brilliantly with the OMGs. I love them from the games, but like, it is just, there's no wrestling, there's no real story in it. It's just big spots. Do you know what I mean? Where it was like, right, get him out the ring, do a big spot, back in the ring, another spot. And like, the one thing, because I thought Drew only did 1 Claymore, but I can't remember because I remember when he'd done it, it was so quick that it almost felt like he made the Claymore look badass. Almost like when Brock Lesnar could just hit an F5 and pin anybody. And it meant something to kick out. Like it made them feel like Drew was this badass. He kicked out of everything Goldberg could hit him with, and then hit him with his own stuff, and he couldn't get up. And especially after the Kevin Owens and the Fiend stuff with Goldberg, this was the way. Even those matches probably should have went, but the fact that they'd done it with Drew was absolutely brilliant. So yeah, plenty of issues and tons of it, but for the story and for what it had to achieve and the surprise of the win, like it absolutely nailed it for a change.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it was. I was surprised by your shock because I was kind of like, it was for me. I guess because we all feel different things. It was, but yeah, I completely agree with you on that. It's, I'm kind of speechless because you pretty much hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
But of course, Aaron, what were your thoughts?
Yeah. Half and half. Now, to Colin's point earlier about legends coming in and just getting shots, that's how Goldberg got the shot for this match. He interrupted, it wasn't a Legends night, but something to do on Raw. He came out and basically just challenged Drew McIntyre, and he's number one contender suddenly. Didn't have to win a match, didn't have to earn it. It wasn't because he came back from an injury where he'd lost the title unfairly, just given a shot. And I didn't like that. But what they then did with the build was decent enough. It was Goldberg wanted to prove that not only did he still have it, but he felt disrespected. And it was Drew saying, no, I am the WWE Championship. I need to beat this guy to prove my worth. And I think they did that with the match. Again, I'm a wrestling purist. One of my favorite matches of all time is Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels, because to me, it's the perfect wrestling match. Goldberg and Drew McIntyre is the opposite. Now, nothing against those two guys at all, but it wasn't much wrestling. You had, as Colin said, move. But at the same time, when you look at the repercussions of those, you look at Drew McIntyre got absolutely beaten senseless. A couple of spears, jackhammer, got put through the barricade, yet he still walked away WWE champion. So as much as not much happened, both guys made the other look... both guys made the other look good. As short as it was, it did what it needed to. Goldberg had a moment, came back, he looked big. Drew McIntyre came in as WWE champion and walked out WWE champion and goes on to WrestleMania with just an extra notch in his legacy. So personally, as much as a wrestling standpoint, I didn't love it. It did what it needed to, which it worked for me.
Yeah, I think with this as well, it's something where we start to see more of these short matches, and you kind of now see the superstars who have the short matches, and it's almost like we've been conditioned to kind of appreciate it. And for me, like I like a decent length in a match. You can do, I mean, take Owen Hart's King of the Ring match, the infamous King of the Ring match, and he did I think it was like less than 5 minutes, and that was just beautiful. That's what you can do in 5 minutes. They put so much in there, and there was a lot of speed to it, but it proves that, you know, I think that for me, if someone said, oh, here's a 5 minute match, I would expect something of that caliber. Again, me, just because of my standards. But with shorter matches, I think it worked in this favor there, because I think we've seen even when Goldberg was doing his run in 2003, we could see that he couldn't really do the longer matches. Like he faced Rock, he was up against Chris Jericho, he was against Triple H for the world title, and I think he did prove himself in certain areas. I just think he was so used to the conditioning of WCW matches, which were just quick conciseness. And I guess the appeal of it in WCW was that he was gaining towards a streak. So it didn't really matter what happened in the match. It's just, oh yeah, he got another one. But yeah, I think you guys made some great points. I think the match was okay. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good. And like you said, Aaron, they both come out looking good. As you said, Colin, it is looking like pretty much a finisher basher, but it's the moves were strong enough that I guess they could get away with that, high impact, someone's going to get knocked out or, going to lose quickly due to this, high impact. So, yeah, I think it was good. It was okay, good.
Totally. As you say, we're conditioned that the minute Goldberg's in a title match, you just know it's, or even Brock as well, like, it's not going to be a lengthy match. So you're conditioned to expect that quickness, and just hopefully you're entertained in that quickness, and hopefully you like the result. And on this occasion, the result was pretty damn good.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think we can
wanted.
Yeah, we can round that off and say, yeah, that's a thumbs up.
Yes, thumbs up, yeah.
Thumbs up, okay. So we'll move on to the second match, which is for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Sasha Banks defending against Carmella with Reginald in her corner. So this was, I think, going into this, now I didn't really see the build up for this, so I can't really comment on leading up to that point. I know that I was told they had a match at TLC, and from what I understand, it was really good. And obviously Sasha winning the title from Bayley, I believe, in their feud. Oh,
think so, yes.
Yeah, I'm very sorry. Lockdown has done weird things to me. To my mind. I'm sure to all of them. So apologies for any discrepancies. Discrepancies. So yeah, in terms of the match, from what I understand, I think Carmella. There was. This is really embarrassing because I don't remember most of the moves. I know that there were some particular spots. So maybe for this one we'll cover over those highlights. So one of the things I saw was that Carmella as a heel, oh man, she annoyed me so much. But she was playing heel, so I was like, oh, she's doing her job, and it was great because she was able to effectively frustrate me. It was just the things that she was kind of saying. Said there's a new boss in town. I said, "Oh, you're stealing the catchphrases. You can't do that." It's that kind of. It's those moments like that I remember, like watching wrestling as a child, and naively I kind of I go back into that mindset in certain moments, and I was surprised that I was able to go back into that with Carmella's kind of speech, but yeah, certainly there was one particular point that was rather scary, and I guess I'll leave it to one of you gentlemen. I feel like I'm speaking quite a bit, so I'll leave it to one of you gentlemen to elaborate.
What I think we'll do from a standpoint here is, Colin, I'll let you answer from a fan's perspective. I'm going to answer from a wrestler's perspective. Now, usually with a suicide dive, you are trained to catch your opponent. It's as simple as that. You are trained to catch your opponent so they do not injure themselves, but at the same time making the move look impactful. So you're not going to stand there, catch, and then fall. You're going to fall at the same time. Now, Carmella's suicide dive to the outside of the ring, which is the move you're mentioning, Ryan, was done through the bottom rope. I have only ever seen, and I could be completely wrong here, I've only ever seen one person do that correctly, and that's Austin Aries. Austin Aries will build up a certain amount of speed, leap through the bottom rope, but he doesn't leap. I'm trying to do this way. Okay. So he doesn't just leap downwards, going through the bottom rope. He will kind of throw himself up. So he's kind of in line with his opponent. So he's still got time to catch and still got time to fall. Because it's through the bottom rope, it's at a certain angle and speed where it's going to look impactful. The point is, you're trying to give your opponent enough time to catch you. And in this case, for anyone who hasn't seen the match or seen the spot we're talking about, Carmella went with such a speed and such an angle that Sasha wasn't able to catch her at all. If anything, she kind of caught her around the waist, leaving Carmella's whole top half having a board meeting with the floor really, really hard. And to her credit, she covered it very well. And personally, I like botches in wrestling sometimes because it makes what's happening seem more realistic. So she didn't kind of pretend it didn't happen. She just dealt with it and carried on, which is great. But from a wrestler's standpoint, if I was Sasha, I would have been annoyed. Because, yes, Carmella was the one that got hurt, not anything lasting or even for the rest of the night, as we'll see later on. it could have been so much worse, and then Sasha could have potentially been to blame, because anyone who doesn't really have a knowledge of wrestling would have thought that's Sasha's fault. Sasha didn't catch her, when in actual fact, not that Carmella could be blamed because she didn't do it on purpose, but it was a bit of mistiming on Carmella's part. It looked so bad. My God. For reaction side, Colin, I'll let you carry on so you can give your.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, you've summed up so well there. I mean, when I first seen it, it's like cringe, like stomach flapping. The way you see her face impact with the floor, like I was surprised there was no sort of like kind of carpet burn type esque on her face, or her nose wasn't smashed in or bloody or something. She just looked like she hit it so hard and so full on her face, got it, that just like, and the way she just kind of landed, I was almost like, is she going to get back up? Like, there was that initial worry, but then just out of nothing, she just shot up. And I mean, like, she dealt with it and she got on with it like a champ, but the adrenaline that must have been pumping through her to get her, and I mean, the way she shot to her feet from it was almost like she realised what had just happened and her body took over. But yeah, the minute it happened, I really worried for her when I seen it, because I'm surprised the refs never went like full on over to see her. I think they just left it between the two of them to sort it, but it was a really hairy moment for sure.
You do see as well that the two of them cover. You don't really see that the match is affected too much. As obviously, as much as I've got wrestling experience, I'm a fan first and foremost. You do notice that it kind of takes you out of the experience. Case in point, say Game of Thrones. There was the famous botch when the coffee cup was left on the table. And so you're watching and you're immersed in this fantasy that you know is not real, but you're watching it and you're following it. In wrestling terms, is kayfabe. But a coffee cup on the table, to me, was Carmella's suicide dive. You suddenly think, damn, wait, no, these are real people. She could be really hurt. Oh, damn. And then that kind of affected the match from a viewing standpoint, because you're taken out of it as such. Again, not anyone's fault as such, but it did affect the rest of the match. And I don't think it finished that long after. So there may have been an effect that we're not aware of, that Carmella and Sasha may have had to cover for. And if they did, they covered very well. Because to me, the rest of the match, as much as there wasn't much left, was decent. The entire match was pretty good, to be fair.
Yeah, I think with it, the one thing I had in my head was, and you guys probably know I'm going to bring up this example, which was Taker Michaels, WrestleMania 25, when Undertaker did his over-the-top rope suicide dive. And, oh my, I mean, to be fair, that match is considered to be in people's top threes, top fives, top tens, whatever. But if there is one point in the match that could have made it the one of the pinnacle WWE matches, and prevented that from happening, it would have been that suicide dive. Because in the end of the day, whilst we can immerse ourselves in what we are seeing and believe that in terms of these, they're fighting each other, they have this feud, we need to bring this to a close. I'm going to come at you with everything I've got. It's one of the core aspects of wrestling that most people enjoy, is just two people settling a feud. And when you have moments like that, we see them as people. Once you start to understand the business and understand the people involved with it, you come to like the people for who they are, as well as their technical ability. And in the end of the day, you don't want to see anybody get hurt, because we've had numerous tragedies, and you don't want to be that person to witness one of those things. And for the most part, the training is there. You learn this through a prosperous career, to learn to take these moves safely. I mean, for yourself, Aaron, with your experience, obviously, it sounds like you don't think you've ever been in a position where you'd have to do something dangerous that would be detrimental to your health. No. And even there, I think you'd probably say, no, I'm not going to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You do have moments where you think to yourself, I'm pushing boundaries. I've been put through tables. I've had weapons, things like that. But it's always been accepted between the two people and the parties and whoever's planning the match, the producer of the match. So going back to the spot with Carmella and Sasha, You know that would have been pre-agreed. That would have been produced as such by whoever was producing the match. It's just something that on paper sounds great, but in practice is very difficult to do. And again, I think they covered very well. But yeah, wrestling, first and foremost, is you are two people protecting each other, making the other person look good. That is the quintessential essence of a wrestling match, and all that being encompassed in an entertaining way. But it is to be safe. That's first and foremost, completely.
No, definitely. I think with that, I'm not sure. Were there any other moment? I'm very sorry. This is the one match that kind of just escaped my brain.
This is what I was saying about it takes away from the immersion, because the match was decent. That is the thing people will remember. Reginald had some bits as well in the match. He was decent. He's doing a good job. But the thing you will remember is that suicide dive. But I think we're lucky to be talking about that spot as a bit of a disappointing botch instead of it being a potential career-ending moment for Carmella and potentially even Sasha.
No, definitely. I think at least we can be reassured that she is safe, because she was in the Women's Royal Rumble match a little bit later on, which we'll go there in just a sec. Obviously, we'll just round off the ending, which is obviously Sasha winning with the bank statement to get the submission win, regaining her title. I didn't think it made sense for Banks to lose it so quickly after only having a few months, and she's always seemed like she seems like a WrestleMania contender worthy candidate, I would say. So having her with the title puts her in a strong position. Were there any other comments from yourselves at all on that match?
Not the match necessarily. I was going to say, again, going to Colin's point about legends returning and getting spots just for no reason. Carmella's was one of the good ways, where she's come back from time off. She's come back reinvigorated, fired up. She's put into a championship feud with Sasha, and as much as she lost both of the championship matches, she's established her new character. She's established Reginald, so she's ready to move on to the next part. This match did nothing to damage what she's built since she came back. So in that kind of sense, going forward, it'll be interesting to see what she does next, but I completely agree. Sasha was the right winner, and going into WrestleMania, Sasha as a women's champion to face either the Women's Royal Rumble winner or someone else it looks like a lock at this point, which is good.
Definitely. And yourself, Colin, did you have any final comments at all?
Yeah, I mean, like the Sasha Carmella, I wasn't sure that was going to go, because Carmella I've never seen as a great worker compared to some of the ones they've got there. But since she's came back, she's really getting into this character that she's bringing, and it's really working for her. And I think this match I've found surprisingly good. Like, apart from, like, we talked about the botch, the ending, but it wasn't so far after the botch. But, like, overall, the match was surprisingly good, and Carmella has surprised me. Sasha definitely for Mania, because she's one of your main stars. She needs to be headlining that pay-per-view with whoever is going to step up. But, like, Carmella just now, she's had 2 title matches and she's not looked out of place. That I'm actually excited to see if they keep this character and build it right. And she'll get a moment further down, I'm sure, as long as they don't wreck this character, because she's working it great.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, completely agree as well. I think with this, we've got the next match, which is the Women's Royal Rumble. We are going to take a quick break in just a moment, but just before we go, I just want to talk about one segment. I think you guys saw it. We got ourselves a little concert.
This is where I go. Bye.
Oh no!
Musical performances in wrestling is a love-hate relationship with me. Now, as much as a metalhead I am, and I miss the Saliva, Motorhead, Limp Bizkit days, I understand that music tastes can change. That's fine. But this.
I feel your pain.
Yeah, no, it's brutal. It is brutal. I mean, like the music they used to use, as you said, like your Limp Bizkits and that it just went with the feel of the product, and it was so badass. Now the music's very hit or miss. I find at times. Sometimes they'll pull a really good kind of rocky song out there, and it'll really hit. sometimes they'll come away with a hip hop, and sometimes it doesn't always stick. But I found this segment more funny to watch. It was. I thought it was so bad that it was funny purely because I was just staring at Booker T the whole time as well, and I just thought that was hysterical. Do you know what I mean? But like again, it was almost like so far it was like right, first two matches, was feeling good. Then getting something like this just felt like, was it really needed? You just wanted to highlight this guy, but you could have just brought his music as part of your promo for Rumble and went, "This Rumble's brought to you by Bad Bunny." But they did.
Yes, that's how they used to do it a lot. Jim Ross and JR. Jim Ross and JR are the same person. Jim Ross and Jerry King Lawler, they do, we'd like to give a shout out to blah, blah, blah. I love this album, knowing full well they've never heard of them before. But it's thanking them for having the theme of the pay-per-view, which is fine. And then, again, going from back when they had the rock songs, WrestleMania 19, very big pay-per-view, you're halfway through, and you've got Limp Bizkit performing one of their new songs. It fits perfectly. It's a kind of a breather in the middle of the show. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they also did The Undertaker's entrance for that year. I could be wrong, but usually they had that in as well. So Motorhead did Triple H before. Saliva did a Chris Jericho song at Survivor Series one year. That kind of links in. So if they were doing that now, for instance, Flow Rider did one WrestleMania. And as much as I'm not a fan of his performance at WrestleMania worked. Again, slap bang in the middle of the show, gives you a chance for your pee break, your drink break, you just pop your head along and relax for a bit.
It's a little party.
Exactly. It was to do with WrestleMania. The song was about Miami. I think they were in Miami at the time. It had something to do with not only the area, but they mentioned WrestleMania as well. And it made sense. Bad Bunny, however, it just felt like because the song was called, I think it was called Booker T or had Booker T in it, that's the only reason it was on. And to me, it was pointless, absolute waste of time. You could have given Ryan, you could have either put a bit of time into Goldberg and Drew McIntyre, or you could have had something else that felt a little more in place, even a backstage segment to build up the following match instead of this.
I was going to say, I've got a couple of points. Number one, the pyro was overkill. They set off so much pyro. I was stood there going, like, is Kevin Nash coming out? Like, what the hell? So that was just, I was just noticing. I was like, okay, they're really going home with this. Number two, Booker T looked so awkward standing there. He just had his arms crossed like this, just going like that. And in his one segment going, "Can you dig it, sucker?" And I was just stood there going, you could have had that in a soundbite. Did you really need Booker there? But they had to drive it home. So I just felt really sorry for him. Number three, I would say they are in the Thunderdome. They could have utilized the ring. They could have had, because I remember going back to the WrestleMania 19 Limp Bizkit performance of Undertaker's theme. Fred Durst actually walked down the ramp and he got in the ring and started singing and jumping on the turnbuckles, and he was like, keep rolling, pyro. And it made a lot more sense. And I think the one thing with like sort of bands as well is that I think just with usually you'd have, it's there because there's more members, everyone's kind of playing things on the fly. I think there's just a bit more I'd say appreciation, but that's just coming from someone who has grown up with liking bands, rather than, and I mean, I don't know, I'm not into the same genre as Bad Bunny, so I don't know whether his lyrical ability is considered good or bad. I can't make a comment on it. I can only go by what I see. And it is a bit deflating, but it's I wish I could say it served its purpose, but I don't think it came off positively in my eyes. And, it just makes me kind of appreciate the times when I discovered bands like, Trust Company, Seether, Edgewater, Drowning Pool. I mean, Drowning Pool had so many hits from various pay-per-views, even going into bands like Evanescence. I got into Evanescence through No Way Out 2003. And I remember I got the Daredevil album because it featured on there, and the single didn't come out till 6 months. And I was trying my best going, you need to listen to this Evanescence song. And I don't think it came out. And then as soon as it got to number 1 in the UK charts, I was kind of like, you know, and it's just one of those things. Wrestling has always had a great ability to showcase music. But yeah, maybe it's just a generational thing. Maybe I'm getting to that age now where the music taste that WWE is trying to cater to isn't our generation, which is fine if it means that we get other positives in terms of wrestling content and storylines.
Yeah.
So
I think they need to pick their spots better because, as you guys have both said with the Manias, WrestleMania's always had that like Super Bowl feel. You know, it's on for hours and it's a spectacle. You know, it's that one pay-per-view of the year that you just don't want to miss. And like it always feels like it's done right when the music you would get live events at WrestleMania because it's this big spectacle. It was the Super Bowl equivalent and it just felt right at home. The Royal Rumble this time around, it was like it could have really done without it. I don't really think there was any purpose other than to showcase this guy's talent. And how we never got a spinner Rooney out of Booker T would have. I mean, that might have gave it some brownie points, but you know, come on, give a spinner Rooney. That's hip hop. Come on, surely.
I actually haven't even thought of that, but that's such a good point. Not even a spinner. He's wearing the I don't know what you call them, but like the old shield gear, the battle armor. Even then, how that didn't happen, I don't know. I probably. As we did with the first match, we did a thumbs up. I know we're all thumbs up for the women's match.
Yeah.
I think we're all in agreement. This is thumbs down. If he had done the spinneroo, I would have given it a thumbs up. Spinneroo. Never thought of that.
It's just you just stood there like spinneroonie 10 without 4.
Yeah. Oh, Christ.
Sorry. All right, I think with that, I think we need a moment to cool off. So, we're ending in part 1 here. So, coming up in part 2, we have our discussions regarding both the men's and women's Royal Rumble and the Universal Championship match with Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens. Stick around; we'll be back in part 2. Hi everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of this special SkyPunk review, where today we are reviewing the Royal Rumble of 2021. Now, if you joined us in part 1, then you'll already know that we've covered the initial bouts between Drew McIntyre and Goldberg, as well as Sasha Banks and Carmella. But now we're getting into some hot commodities. So yeah, let's completely forget about the Bad Bunny thing and go straight into the Women's Royal Rumble. So what we're going to do for this one is we'll just go through each of the entries. I think we'll try and comment on each of them because there were so many things going on. I think it's probably best that we just list the superstars, give our opinions on their performances, and then just kind of go from there. So obviously you guys jump in whenever you feel like it. It's free for all. So just like a Royal Rumble. So initially, we started off with entry number 1 being Bayley, and she came out rather happy. Like, I honestly thought we were going to get the wacky waving inflatable tube men. I thought she was like, yeah, I'm going to win the Rumble. And it's like, number 1, like if she was number 30, I would understand, but number 1, just like, maybe, I don't know, maybe there was a bit of context missing. But yeah, I mean, Bayley did very well. She lasted just under half an hour, and she got a elimination from, I think she eliminated Ruby Riott. Yeah, I can't really. She was there for some spots. I don't think she made much of an impact, but I think she did well.
Yeah. Someone like Bayley is someone you want in the Royal Rumble. They're a lot like a Seth Rollins, a Drew McIntyre, where you could give them some of the bigger spots, some of the bigger moments, and they'd be able to handle them quite well. You also have, I can't remember all of the NXT stars that came in from the match, but you have people like Rhea Ripley coming in. Now, I know in the Royal Rumble match themselves, Bayley and Rhea, I don't think interacted, but as an example, having someone like Bayley, they are the perfect person to work with NXT stars. They're not like a Dana Brooke or a Billie Kay. They've got that name value, so you can have that Bailey versus blah blah blah, even if it's just for a couple of moments. So having her number one and having her for as long as the match as she worked. It was good.
Yeah.
No, definitely. She was solid enough, and she did her job essentially. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, I think she put in a good shift. To be fair, especially with the people that she interacted with. But there was nothing pure standout. But again, for what she did, she just did her job.
Yeah, solid overall. Well done, Bailey. So now we're going into entry number 2, which was a returning Naomi. So with this, so she lasted quite a long while. She lasted about 47 minutes, which was quite a long time. She didn't get any eliminations. However, she was eliminated by 2 people, a certain new women's tag team champions, who we will dive into a little bit later. The one thing I will say about this, and it comes back to the spots, because ever since John Morrison did that leap across the ring in 2011, we've had these spots. Now, obviously, in the men's rumble, we had Kofi Kingston doing it, and I can't recall anybody else, but it kind of became Kofi's shtick. Naomi kind of also took that on her own. Now, I personally think there may need to be some changes to the Rumble rules. I don't know whether it's me getting old, but personally, I think if you're flat on your back outside the ring and you're not grabbing anything in related to the ring, I would consider that an elimination. What are your thoughts?
To your point, the Royal Rumble has always been called the adults version of the floor is lava. And in the floor is lava, any body part touches the floor and you're out. Now, you do run the risk of having any moment where a hand may touch or anything like that can change, but I see what you mean. If you are outside, if you've gone over the top and you land on the outside of the floor, that's it, regardless if your feet touch or not. Because as you said, I think it was this Rumble with Naomi, she had a spot where she landed on her back with her feet up. Yeah. What is to stop any wrestler ever doing that? Even if they're on their apron, on the apron, and they're getting kicked off. Okay, I'll land back first and keep my feet up. To me, it then doesn't make sense. If Naomi can do it, why everyone else can't do it? Most of her elimination dodges, as well as Kofi Kingston, they've been intricate. They've been different. None of them have been as simple as this, where she landed on her back with her feet up. Because why didn't everyone else do that? It just makes everyone else look stupid for not doing that. But you're going to have a moment in the Rumble where someone's like, they're out. Oh, wait, it's the Royal Rumble's version of a near fall. So it works, but I agree. I didn't like the spot, personally.
Yeah, I never really thought much about it at the time, but we're hearing you talking, like, when you kind of look at this screen and you just see her flat on her back, legs up, you're like, it doesn't seem like what she's done in the past, what people like Kofi Kingston have done. There's nothing, it's so basic and so cheap almost looking that it's just like, you've went over the top and you've landed. Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of eliminations that you look at when they go over the top and they land, they probably land on their body, their top half first. That they could just keep a leg up, both feet have no touched. Do you know what I mean? It is cheap. It's different if they fall out and they land on the announce table. And it's like, well, fine, you've not landed on the floor.
Yes.
So there is that cheap feel to it. And for some of the spots that some of these wrestlers can do, this one felt a bit cheap.
Yeah. I think going back to your point, Ryan, of changing the rules, if they were to, not to try and big myself up because it's the point I made, but the floor is lava rules should come into effect. If you are on the floor, you're out.
Yeah. I think we could probably get away with like one, because obviously Michaels did it with the 1 foot. And I think, to be fair, I can see, because sometimes there are slips, and I think, because there's always going to be botches. It's just the way it is. So it could be a contingency plan, but I just want to kind of see some consistency, because it didn't annoy me to an extent, I think when you go back to the creative spots of like John Morrison, you know, the way he jumped over Kofi Kingston with his handstand,
Yes, yeah.
you know, I thought they were impressive. I think as well, if it was like every once in a while, I'd understand, but it seems to be at almost every Rumble now. I think it's just kind of like, it's like the joke that you say and you laugh at the beginning, you're like, haha, and every time you hear it, and then you hear it for like the 15th million time, and you're like, oh, yeah, I know that. So it's just maybe lost its flair. Maybe they just need to take a break from it or try and find something a bit more creative. Yeah, that would be great. but yeah, I think if we,
But I think it's sorry to buy it. I think
that's
it's
fine.
just the problem that it's the same wrestlers that are doing those spots now.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
that's a good point,
It's almost like when you see Kofi Kingston or you see Naomi, you're almost expecting, right, they're going to do a spot. Like they could sideswipe it and do it with someone else. Do you know what I mean? Like Bailey, she's never done a spot like that. If she done it, it'd be like, well, that's kind of cool. It's, you know, something that you don't expect. It's almost like when Naomi, it was great to see her back, but you were waiting on it almost, and then I think that's why it's almost like it felt cheap, it felt flat. Do you know what I mean? That it was just, it's like, nah, that was not worth a wait.
Yeah. So I agree. It's certainly an interesting one, but we'll see. You know, I don't think there'll maybe a change anytime soon, but I think just maybe updating it to to more modern things. I think there was another spot as well in in the men's rumble, which I'll go into a little bit later, but we'll leave it to that point. Okay, so kind of going through. So number 3, we had Bianca Belair. A big favorite to go into. I think one of the interesting things was she did have a Chronicle video released on the WWE Network, and I think for me at that point I kind of thought, okay, she's going to be last 4, and lo and behold, she was last 4, but last 3. But I think we'll go into her in the last 3 at the end. But you know, she lasted a very long length of time. She managed to get herself 4 eliminations, proving herself to be quite strong. So it's probably best that we go back to her at the end because she is in the final 3. And number 4, we had Billie Kay. And I tell you what, she played a comedy character, and I loved Billie Kay when she was part of the Iconics. She just had a great humor about her, and just the whole resume, and just being she's just naturally humorous, and I just love that about Billie Kay.
I remember one of the years, I think 2011, I'm probably wrong, you had CM Punk. CM Punk did the promo during the Royal Rumble, and then every other person that came in, he had a small interaction with, and either eliminated and attacked or tried to get to join his group at the time. And Billie Kay kind of reminded me of that in this match. It wasn't too long, but doing the whole CV to every wrestler that came out was incredible. Again, I'm not a big comedy wrestling fan unless done right. I mean, Ryan, I know you're wearing a Progress top yourself. Progress have shown that comedy wrestling can be done very well. And this Rumble proves that you can do comedy wrestling quite well without taking away from the actual seriousness of the match itself. You had Billie with, I believe, could be wrong here, Tony Storm, Tony blanked her. There was someone else, and I cannot remember.
So there was also Shotzi Blackheart, which is the next entry. And we also had Shayna Baszler, who literally just punched her picture, just like...
Exactly, yes. And then leading to her little join up with, I won't reveal it right now, but the first surprise entry, I think, in the Women's Royal Rumble, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall we quickly run through these next few and then get to that one?
Go.
So next we had Shotzi Blackheart, fully available with Tank, who almost shot a Billie Kay. She didn't get any eliminations. She didn't last very long. She only lasted a couple of minutes. I would have loved to have seen her for a bit more. I think she could have had a bit more time in there personally, but she was the first eliminated, but you know, it's good to see her in there. Number 6, we had Shayna Baszler next, who lasted a very long time and eliminated quite a few people, 6 people. I thought she looked very dominant in this match, and with a certain alliance that we'll go into a little bit later, they did. You know, I thought she did really well. Tony Storm a big fan of Toni Storm ever since seeing her in Progress as the Progress Women's Champion. I think she's starting to, I think, get to, she's always had a kind of a great kind of aura about her, but we were able to see her in that way. I didn't realize that she was heel because I haven't been keeping track very frequently. So I've just been like, oh, okay, I kind of get a shot. But, I thought she did really well. No eliminations, but she lasted quite well. Which then goes into the first surprise entrant, which is Jillian Hall, which I was not expecting.
No. You see why Jillian was an inclusion. And I didn't twig straight away. I was watching the Women's Rumble with my partner. And as soon as you can hear the singing, I had kind of ducked my head and you could see my partner looking at me as if to say, what's wrong? And then she comes out with the mic, yeah, now you are mine. And you think, oh, God. And it was only at this point, I was thinking, what's the point? Why have you, Shotzi, Tony, established main roster stars like Shayna Bazler, guys like that, make sense. Jillian, why the hell are you giving her a spot in the Rumble? And then Billie Kay comes along. And you go, okay. Exactly. You're like, okay, all right. And then, of course, Jillian accepts the CV as such. And, what do they call themselves? Was it?
Jillian Billy.
That was it. Billy and Jilly. Which I'm not sure if it was supposedly purposely a knock on Milli Vanilli. But I personally loved it. And again, this is what I said about comedy wrestling. Their spots in the Rumble going forward. As much as there wasn't many, it was perfect. It was funny. They gelled well. And again, it took my initial thought of what the hell are they wasting a spot on Jillian Hall for going, you know what, that was funny. Okay. And I liked it.
Yeah, I've got to absolutely 100% agree with you there, Aaron, because I've literally wrote in my notes next to Jillian Hall's name, WTF. Because I was just like, what the fuck? Do you know what I mean? I was just like, this is your first kind of legendary surprise type side, and I'm like, oh. But then with the whole Billie Kay thing and how it got her into the match, I thought, you know what, he's actually played that really well. He's had me really, really worried and questioning what the rest of this match was going to be like. But I thought, you know what, you've given us a bit of comedy. Billie was nailing her side, and it was a good wee segment.
Yeah, no, definitely. Moving on, we had Ruby Riott next. I mean, she did manage to get one elimination. However, I think she eliminated Billie Kay with her following Riott Squad member. Didn't really see much of her, but didn't really see her not much of an opportunity. But I thought she did well.
Yeah. With the Royal Rumble, you are going to have some stars that shine. You are going to have some that come in and make no noticeable change in the match at all. That's not the wrestler's fault. That's not even WWE for booking. You are going to have some people that just fade into the background. And for this match, Ruby Riott was one of those. She had a moment or two with Billie, because of course we've seen Billie mixing with the Riott Squad leading up to it. So it wasn't that she did nothing, but not much of note, which is it's going to happen.
Yeah. I think with it, it's I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head, Aaron. So, but the next entrant was a surprise entrant and was actually a welcome one. It was Victoria.
Yes.
I would have preferred that she came out to Tattoo, because I remember when she did come out to that when it was WrestleMania 19, and I loved it. I thought it was so good. Yeah, that was a creepy. That video on the Titantron video, that was weird. Just stuff of nightmares. But she didn't really last long. She actually lasted less time than Ruby, but she was a great spot. I felt like she was there just for a brief moment, but I felt like it was, as a surprise entrance, it was a welcome change.
Exactly. Victoria's got a lot to offer. Maybe not so much in longevity of a career now, but just sheer name value. Everything she did for WWE to begin with, everything she's done in other companies, definitely what I'd call a perfect Royal Rumble surprise entrant. And not just that, but it was down to her elimination. Because as far as I'm aware, she was eliminated by Shayna, am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So not only does Victoria come in, give herself a boost, to be eliminated by Shayna gives Shayna a boost to say, I eliminated a multi-time women's champion. What have you done? So in all of that encompassed makes a perfect surprise Rumble entrant. It was amazing. Loved it.
Yeah, and I felt she looked really good as well. Do you know what I mean? I was actually surprised because I first seen I was like, right, you know, with return legends, you're always thinking, especially when you've not seen them for so long, you're like, and if you don't follow them, it's almost like, what have you been doing? Have you know? But
exactly.
She was booked really well, and she gave a real good account of herself, and I thought it was a great proper surprise that was worthy rather than comedic.
Yeah,
definitely. So with this, we'll kind of run through some rather quickly. There, I think we'll obviously quickly talk about the main ones in that. But obviously we had Peyton Royce next, like you say, had the moment. There was that awkward moment where they tried to do the eye thing, and Billy was just stood there. I thought that was such a wasted opportunity. Just let them have that moment. They just let them do that their thing. And it was a shame because I thought, you know, they had the move, and I was like, just do the move, and I just felt it was a bit off. But you know, it's Peyton did well from what I see. I think she eliminated one other person, so you know, not too bad. The next entrant, I don't really know personally. I've not really seen them wrestle much, but it was Santana Garrett from NXT.
Oh, this, I had a heart attack when I saw this. I know Santana Garrett, I say quite well. I know of her. I thought that when I saw the name that it was Santina, as in Santina Morella. I saw Santana, I went, no. But yeah, Santana Garrett was, I think, probably the weirdest inclusion in this Rumble. And that says a lot for a Rumble that has Jillian Hall in it. Nothing against her personally. I could not tell you what she's done in NXT at all. So her inclusion in the Rumble is odd. I mean, again, she didn't seem bad. She was a good inclusion to the Rumble. I don't think she eliminated anyone, but she was part of some things. So I can't complain. But it was definitely an odd inclusion.
Yeah, it was obviously, as you say, I'm in the same boat. I thought it was somebody different when she was coming out that I had a proper, I think I actually paused it to check the name at the top. But it was the same. It was like I usually am quite good at keeping tabs on NXT, and that's not a name I've seen come up often. So obviously I felt this one was just more about exposure, getting out there, show off a little bit, and you know, encourage people to tune into NXT, and where hopefully she might gain something from this Rumble appearance.
Yeah, hopefully, definitely. Yeah, like you say, certainly a weird inclusion, but you know, it's a spotlight. Hopefully, she does get something positive from that, so we can anything. And for me, just hearing the name, I'm just sitting there going, I will make sure to keep my eyes peeled. So it's a little positive there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep.
Yeah. So next we have Liv Morgan, again another Riot Squad member. Nothing of really of note. I think she got one elimination with Peyton Royce. No, with Ruby Riot. No, it was Ruby Riot with Billy Kay being eliminated. I don't think. But I think the
outfit was a weird point, and I think that's going to be maybe not remembered for too long. Because straight away my partner was like, that's Christina Aguilera. And I thought, oh yeah. So the outfit was a nice touch. I mean, not that I sexualize women wrestlers at all, but it was nice that she, like and Rey Mysterio used to do, he used to dress up as superheroes at WrestleMania. It was a nice little, yeah, exactly. Oh, I see what you're doing. But that was it. I couldn't tell you a single thing she did in a Rumble besides that.
Yeah, I don't think I could.
No, I'm in the same boat. She came in, she obviously burst energy in to save a Riot team member and started off with a flurry, and then it kind of just evaporated until it was almost like the announcer was like, oh look, she's out. All right, okay, cool.
Yeah, but I know the next person we're going to be having a lot to talk about, because in at number 14 we had NXT's Rhea Ripley, and oh my god, she looked awesome, so dominant. She was like she got the most eliminations in the Rumble, and like some of the spots, like some of the eliminations, they did look rather stiff. Like the landings were just a little bit just kind of like, oh, and there was a little bit of caution for me. It didn't take me out of the match completely, but there was some match where I was like, but I could feel it. Like I think ever since, you know, WrestleMania last year, you know, Rhea's been very open about losing that momentum after the loss to Charlotte. And I think from that, I think this was her opportunity to prove herself, and I think we can agree she definitely made a statement.
Oh yes. Oh, besides the eventual winner, I would say definitely one of the MVPs of this Rumble. Absolutely incredible. To your point, yes, there were a couple of eliminations and things that you did go, oh, damn. But you could tell they were done safely. And because they were eliminations, it's okay. Because I can imagine saying to, for instance, I know she didn't eliminate Peyton Royce, but say you could say to Peyton Royce, hey, I need to do this. And she'd be like, it's the last thing I'm taking for the night. Of course, that's fine. So it was done safely, but it also added to the oomph factor. Because you'd see the elimination, you go, damn, okay, all right. And of course, that built her momentum for the rest of the match, which, amazing. So good.
She absolutely looked like a badass the way she kind of dominated for large portions. And as you were saying with some of those eliminations, it was just when the camera would go straight to her face and she had that evil kind of smirky smile. You know, do you know what I mean? It was just played so well that, I mean, part of me does not want to see her leave NXT because she's been built awesomely that I don't trust the main roster. I'm sorry, I don't trust Vince, basically. Because Shayna Baszler was the same. Badass, built, dominant, and she's had dominant performances at the Rumble, even like this one. But she's just in the middle of nowhere right now, as where Rhea is really hitting her stride with her character. She's built up a lot of momentum. She's like really top tier level now for sure.
Oh, definitely. So with that, we are going to come back to Rhea because she is also a final three, and I'm also going to do the same for Charlotte. She was in at number 15, but we'll come back to her as well. I'm going to try and, because I'm a bit conscious on time, I'm going to see if we can just run through these. Any one of note, just let me know, and we'll just say a quick word. So Dana Brooke was next at number 16. To be fair, I think she did pretty well. You know, did a couple of things. I still want to see more from Dana. I think that she would. I think she has proven in spots that she can do well in a match. But yeah, she only lasted a couple of minutes, so it was a bit. You know, it was what it was. Any notes from you guys quickly?
No, you said it perfectly.
Okay. So next we had Tori Wilson. I know that when she debuted in the Women's Rumble, I think it was last year or the year before, but that was a really pleasant surprise. I think she did her moment. It wasn't so much of a surprise this time, but you know, it was pleasant. She's a Hall of Famer, so you know, she was okay.
Was needed.
Yeah, exactly. And then we had Lacey Evans at number 18. I know that she was involved with, as we've mentioned about the whole Flair storyline. I don't think she added anything to herself in the Rumble apart from just kind of stoke the fires a little bit more.
Exactly. Yeah.
The one weird thing I thought was that Charlotte and Lacey had that kind of, that combatant, that clash, and then they didn't see each other the most of the match. I was stood there going, like, if I was Charlotte, I would have been beating her up consistently until she was out of the Rumble. So that was a bit weird, but it's Rumble. There's going to be more people.
Yeah. That was definitely my issue with that, because when I seen it, I thought, right, we're going to see a bit of this rivalry continue. And it got off to the perfect start. Do you know what I mean? The way Charlotte just locked eyes with her when she was walking down to the ring, you could see the anger. And it was just, it worked so well. And then after that flurry outside, she went back in the ring, and then it was almost like she just forgot she was in this match. And it was like, this rivalry should be so heated that Charlotte's trying to throw her over the top rope, and and it maybe turns around that Lacey got it, and then that stokes the fire even more. But it was almost like they were trying to protect them too much because of where they wanted to situate them in the match, that it just fell flat, and it was just like, maybe should have kept them apart in this somehow a bit more.
I agree.
It didn't work.
Yeah, it's a shame. I'm going to quickly go through two others, Mickie James and Nikki Cross. They looked good. There is a point with this Rumble I will make near the end as well. And then Alicia Fox, she only had a brief moment, and she also managed to become a 24/7 champion because R-Truth came down.
Yes.
Interference was a bit weird. I just kind of thought, R-Truth coming in? It's just, and then it's always with the 24/7 title, because you'll see the champion come down, and then there's this herd of sheep that come towards the champion, who is like, oh, they're there, and it just looks so awkward.
It does. But, I get why they've done it for the pay-per-view, because it was something that hadn't been done before. To be able to say you had a title win in a Rumble is something that's never happened before.
Yeah.
But it really, really felt shoehorned in.
Yeah.
Like
I get why they did it, but that's it.
I can kind of see it from that point, but like I'm really, really starting to hate this title. When Truth first came down, he's like, my bad, wrong match. I was like, oh, that's such a Truth thing to do. Yeah. That I find quite humorous. And then you see the bodies, and then you're just like, oh, no, I don't. It actually, for me, disrupted the match, disrupted the flow. And actually, it's that one negative where, like, as an overall match, I'd be like, that is the sore point with me, is the fact that that's stuck right in the middle, and it shouldn't have been in there at all. Give Truth his moment, bit of comedy, that would have been funny, and it's a very Truth thing to do. But the whole title thing, I was just like, I agree.
I don't know if it was at this moment as well, but it might have been a little bit later. I do apologize if I've got the timings wrong, but I remember Bianca eliminated Bayley, and it just felt that might have been a little bit later. Maybe not, but it just felt like this. I was like, that was a big moment. Like, Bayley was in there from number one, and the camera angles just getting it wrong. They did it on the replay and recovered it, but I was like, that should have been a big moment to capture. Like I say, if that's not in that segment, apologies. Sometimes with the Rumbles, they just get a blur.
There was a segment, I don't know if it was somebody else getting eliminated, but then it was almost like, oh, by the way, we've lost Bayley, and then they had to kind of do the recap, and it was like, that's actually, I was quite surprised they'd done that. It was Bayley, especially for who, if it was like, like Billy Kay, it would have been like, all right, okay, that kind of stuff happens. Yeah. But somebody at Bayley stature, I was surprised that happened.
Yeah. I'm going to run off a quick load of names: Mandy Rose, Dakota Kai, Carmella. Again, like they didn't really last long. Got a couple of eliminations in, but they were there. They did their part. Fair play. Tamina, again, kind of similar kind of situation. She's kind of like, the Force. Can't really say much from us there. Interestingly, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Lana. So she's entry number 26. Now, with the way that the whole Survivor Series ending went, and the treatment of her in that way, for me, the fact that she got to eliminate Nia Jax, who comes up later in a moment, was kind of a cool moment. It was just kind of like, it's finally, like, you've been bullied for so long. It's that one time you get a punch on them and then they run away. So yeah, I was quite happy with Lana, but I don't really remember else anything apart from that. I don't think do you guys remember anything?
No, I mean, she got that elimination, which was great. At first, I thought we were going to maybe see a different side of her. She came in like with that kind of look in her face. I thought, oh, maybe we're going to actually start to see a wrestler develop here. But once she got in and that initialness wore off, it was kind of like she just kind of disappeared. But before that spot of eliminating, which was a shame. I thought I was expecting more when the way I seen her do her entrance.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
And then the next one, interested to hear your guys' views on this. So we had Alexa Bliss, who is making all of the tricks at the moment because spooky magic and all that. So I think with Alexa Bliss, it's one of these things where she's seen as a wild card because of her powers of the Fiend. And there's the moment where she gets hit and she just stands in the middle. Then the Thunderdome screens suddenly they look cracked. Now, and I saw everyone stopped. And what happened was, like, she transformed, she went to the ropes, and then Rio just pushed her over. Now, if that were me, because they also bundle on her. Now, what I would have done is, I would have preferred that as if she did that moment and everyone swarm in as soon as they see the cracks. Like, someone just goes, go, 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 and then literally just chuck her over the ring. I would have seen that as more, like, it's in the moment. I know I'm being like nitpicky, but I think that would have been more authentic, because her walking to the ropes, I kind of like, oh, she's going to get eliminated, isn't she? And lo and behold, Rhea's just like, whoop, and off you go. So, but I'm glad they didn't do any sort of cinematics in this, because I think that would have just broken the match.
I think that's why they did it. Alexa, for me, will always be one of my favorite female wrestlers because she is, in wrestling, you have a term that's classed as a good hand. A lot of wrestlers don't like being called a good hand because that means that you're good, you're nothing special, but you're good to have around. Alexa Bliss will always be a great hand, but she also has the legacy as well. And especially, as with Chris Jericho used to do, he would always reinvent himself. With Bliss and this new character, it's fresh, it's new, it's something different. Personally, I loved the fact that they teased her kind of dark Super Saiyan turn just to get eliminated. But the reason they've done it, and I put money on this, the reason backstage they did this is if obviously she's not transforming at all. It's cinematic because they're in the Thunderdome. They are able to stop. She changes, come back, and pretend like it's just happened. For continuity reasons, when you have however many women you have in the ring, you could not have them in the exact same position after she changed.
That makes sense.
I think there was no way in hell they would have been able to legitimately and logistically actually pull off a transformation. So the fact that they went, well, we can't do it, let's just not have it happen. Let's tease it and have Rhea eliminate her. And it works so well. Doesn't damage her in any way because it's a Rumble elimination. She's not been pinned. She's not been beaten up. I kind of thought we'd see Randy Orton because what they've done recently with her and Orton side by side.
Shout.
I thought when she was turning, the lights would have come out. And then when the lights came back on, she was still normal and he was behind. Obviously, they didn't because they were leading towards Orton in the men's Royal Rumble. But I expected something like that. But again, love Alexa Bliss. But I love what they did with her, even though she was, I don't think she was even in long enough between her and the next participant, if I can remember rightly. But it still worked. I enjoyed it. It was a good moment.
Yeah, I'm the same. I love the Super Saiyan reference. I absolutely love that. It was almost like the hair went up, ready, but just before it turned gold, she gets eliminated. It was almost like it's half a transformation. She's out. But again, like I think they've done it right. It's all about protecting Alexa Bliss because really she's this larger than life character. She's absolutely smashing it in that terms that they need to, it's almost like getting rid of her was not only protecting her because she's this higher power, but it protects the other superstars because really anybody in that ring she should just start weaving over the ropes. But I'd be like you, Ryan, I'd be nitpicking, but it was like I just wish more than just Rhea eliminated her. Do you know what I mean? Maybe when she's in the centre, that hurdle that got her down, like even just freeze or something, just be like, just quickly from the middle, chuck her off, and it's a team effort, and it'd be like, yeah, Christ, she still looks badass. She got taken down by a whole load of superstars, and it even took a handful to get her over the rope.
Yeah. I think maybe my comment on it being, you know, I having everyone in there maybe a little bit harsh because I think, you know, it made, you know, it serviced what it needed to do and it didn't make it look awkward or anything like that. So definitely the right way to go about it, and as you said, protects her and her ability. So yeah, good overall. And then the final three I'll just rack off. Ember Moon. I tell you what, seeing the Eclipse. Love that move. I keep on saying like Total Eclipse in my head for some reason, and I know it's not the move, but I want to say Total Eclipse because of the Jaffa Cakes advert. Nice little UK advert reference. So Full Moon. I'll maybe get some for the next one. But yeah, like she was only there for a little bit, but you know, it was nice. You know, it's nice to see her appearance. Nia Jax, she's always been fairly dominant in these rumbles. I know that she teamed up with Shayna for a number of eliminations, which was kind of cool. Eventually getting eliminated by Lana, as we've discussed. It's okay. And then Natalya, who was announced as the 30. One thing I will say, I would have preferred if they did that match, if they said you have two people, the winner gets spot number 30, the loser gets spot number 1. I think they've done that previously, but I think that would have been better as a segment. Plus,
I had actually brought this up. It's a minor sidetrack. Me and my partner watched another Royal Rumble a couple of days before this one, and I believe it's the one, the Edge one. Ironically, where he first came back from injury after being tag team champions with Chris Jericho to go on to face Jericho Rumble. The reason I bring it up is because in that Royal Rumble, you had The Miz starting at number 1 because The Miz had lost a match to R-Truth. And the loser of that match would earn the number 1 spot. Number 1 was The Miz, number 2 was Alex Riley, and then R-Truth came in at number 30. And you would have thought, surely if you've beaten someone who was then going to be number 1, you would then be number 30. But no, he only came in at number 3. So to your point, if Natalya had won and become number 30, you would then think her opponent would then be number 1. But she defeated, was it Tamina?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and Tamina was in the late 20s of
25. So it just, what was the point in it? You just,
5 spots.
Need to have a little bit more weight on there. And with Natalya, like I say, she only got 1 elimination, but she wasn't in there very long. I know that she had that spot with Lana where, you know, she kind of hugged her and then kind of turned on her. But you always get little moments like that. So
exactly. That wasn't a full-on heel turn at all.
Yeah,
that's just Rumble all for all. So that was fine.
Yeah, exactly. So so those are all the entries. So we will briefly talk about the final 3. So obviously it came down to Charlotte Flair, Rhea Ripley, and Bianca Belair. Now,
sorry to cut across. This is why I love this so much. Is because, of course, you had last year at WrestleMania, Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte. Bianca Belair was used in the run-up to this match, and a lot of people, including myself, thought, why not add Bianca? It's the NXT Women's Championship. Yes, Charlotte's from the main roster. Why not have Bianca as well? So to have them in the final 3 this year and to see how they gelled just proves everyone who wanted the triple threat last year to be smarter than WWE bookers.
We always are. You know. But yeah, I think it was. I liked it. I loved all the way because I think leading up to it, I was sitting there going, Charlotte's going to win, isn't she? Because there's always this rumor that she's like heard paid dues or something like that, and she's won so many women's titles. You're going, oh, she's just going to try and beat her father's record. It just seems like it's the John Cena effect all over again.
It is.
And especially with her losing the tag titles earlier on in that same pay-per-view, you're thinking, right, here's this kind of sick. Especially when the Lacey thing didn't pan out, it was almost like, right, this is why she's dropped it. You're thinking she's winning this.
Yeah,
no, definitely. I think so. Yeah, obviously seeing her eliminated was a shock. I think that afterwards, where Rhea and Bianca, they had that moment where they were both kind of hanging, and then they were like, "Whoa, let's stop." Okay, let's do this together. And it's one of these things where you just kind of know it's like a little NXT kind of thing. You're like, we're respectful people. We come from the same turf.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back in the ring and then let's just start this normally. And I kind of like that. It was a nice little respect thing. Know your roots. So, and then, sorry?
No.
I was just
going to say, it was just the fact that it came down to those 2, I thought was brilliant because it's probably the first Rumble in quite a while where I've like, right, I've got no clue who's winning this. Either one of them deserves this. And it's like, there's been plenty of Rumbles when it gets down to the last 2, you're like, oh, here it comes. This person's going to win. But like with these 2, I was pleasantly surprised it came down to these 2. And I thought it just worked really well because even I'm sitting there going and I'm just like, it's anyone's now. The fact they got rid of Charlotte was brilliant. So it was like, this is
exactly. I agree. They had the year that Shinsuke Nakamura won. The final 2 was Shinsuke, who everyone wanted to win. It was a nice inclusion. But you also had Roman Reigns. And that's what I fully expected to happen here. Not Roman Reigns winning the war, but more Charlotte versus either Rhea or Charlotte versus Bianca. So the fact that Charlotte was eliminated second to last, and then you had Bianca and Rhea together was great because you were like, oh, which one? Either could win and I'd be happy.
Unpredictability.
Exactly. You'd have either for either merit. But yeah, and then obviously we get to the final 2 and it goes the way it does.
Yeah, and obviously Bianca would go on to win. Obviously, very emotional as it would, especially, I think with her journey, I think she's in NXT. I think she has shown her worth. And still, there's some untapped potential in there as well, which is still great because you can just see that as she flourishes now into a main event scene. So this is a perfect opportunity for her. And with Rhea, I thought she looked dominant. I was kind of edging for her because but she comes off really dominant. She got the most eliminations. She looked absolutely fantastic. A complete revival of how the aftermath of WrestleMania last year. So both of them came out fantastic. Much praise to Bianca. It's a worthy opportunity. So I think we've been speaking for about 35 minutes. Ooh, we had a lot to talk about, but I will say this was my favorite match of the night. Despite the little moments where most of the combatants were just having little spots, as we've said, and just playing the part, everyone in there felt like they were established, which is what I appreciated. Like there was, and this is the first time I had that in a women's rumble. Not to say the previous ones there weren't unworthy. I just look at it from top to bottom and just think as an overview, I was just like, wow, like everyone that's there, despite how they may have been treated on some of the other shows. Everyone, a little bit of their history. You felt invested, and it just felt like a fully fleshed out rumble with all of those entries. This was my favorite match of the night. A lot of great moments. Rhea looked fantastic. A little bit of comedy, some stars I liked, some past and present, and I thought it was good.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. This is why I don't mind spending so long talking about this one. Not that we're going to rush through the men's, but there's a lot more to unpack in this match. Not necessarily good and bad, just a lot of things that were notable and a lot of things that weren't. But that's nothing bad. As is with life, some things happen that you won't remember the following day. Whereas the men's rumble, I think, is a little more on the other side, but we'll get to that soon. But overall, loved the women's Royal Rumble. And to your point, Ryan, I think it probably is the best they've ever had.
No, definitely. I think it's great. Colin, just before we go into the next one, do you have any comments on the match itself?
Yeah, the match itself was brilliant. I don't know if I'd put it up as my favourite. Just pure for me, it just sticks with me too much. That 24/7 issue was just... It could have been for me the main match. If it wasn't for that, it just felt unneeded and just disrupt what was a really good flow to that point. But Bianca was the right one. She looked great in last year's Rumble. She's not really had that cemented push, I feel, in the last year, but this was like the next step for it, and she looked absolutely brilliant throughout the match to get to that next spot, and she looks so worthy for the Mania match. But again, this is where I think the live crowd, if you know what I mean, actually benefited, because I feel like there wasn't a lot of legends. There wasn't a lot of these returning people, because they're never going to really get a huge pop because they've not got the crowds there. So they actually dived into the NXT bag a little bit more, and I feel like more people that might on a normal year wouldn't have got that kind of spotlight. I felt got it this year, and I felt like it was just a well-rounded Rumble, and it wasn't with the people they put in there and trimming the fat off the kind of legends that were allowed in. It worked really well, and I think everyone in the match really did get their kind of wee moment to shine in it as well.
Going on the end as well, Bianca's promo. On kind of a very small side note, Dusty Rhodes used to say that a wrestling character works when you are fully invested in it. That's why The Fiend worked so well. That's why The Rock worked so well, because you could tell they were invested. As much as Bianca Belair is not a character as much, she's a person. Her after-match promo with the tears and the emotion, and you could tell how much winning that Rumble meant. To me, that is the new Ric Flair Rumble promo. With a tear in my eye, one of the best famous of all time. Bianca's will go among those as an absolutely emotionally incredible promo. Heartfelt, impactful, and that, whoever she challenges at WrestleMania, that promo will be used in that package for sure.
Definitely. I think one of the final questions I will ask guys before we go into the next match is, who would you see Bianca face with the champions we have already? So we've got Asuka as the Raw Women's Champion, and on SmackDown we have Sasha. Who would you guys pick? Oh, I think Aaron's already picked.
Sasha, hands down.
I think.
I need to absolutely agree. I think they two could have a phenomenal match. They two are suited for each other, and I would actually love to see that match because I think it could be outstanding.
It's nothing against Asuka at all, or whoever the Raw Women's Champion will be going into WrestleMania. But for me, Sasha and Bianca are very similar. It just, the promo alone, give me full on the EST Bianca Belair and the boss Sasha Banks back and forth, not just being bitchy or catfighting, but the ego, the swag, listening to those two talk to each other and be like, I don't want to do it because I can feel awfully, but you know what I mean. The whole no girlfriend, that I'd watch in a heartbeat, and a match based on that, easy. Now WWE may have different plans, but I personally, Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair, WrestleMania, easily.
Yeah, I wish I'd wrote down on a piece of paper, Sasha, because I would have just revealed it up and said, like, 3, that's a strike, or whatever it's called in bowling, triple. I don't know. I keep forgetting bowling terms. What is bowling? It's a pre-pandemic thing, I think. Apparently, just wild. But yeah, congratulations to Bianca, though. Very worthy winner. So yeah, can't wait to see what she brings to the table at WrestleMania. So yeah, I guess the road to WrestleMania starts with Bianca and starts with another player man, but we'll get into that in a moment. So we'll quickly go through. So the next match on the card was the last man standing match for the Universal title with Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens. So this match was, apart from the Rumbles, with the exception of the Rumbles, it was the longest of the night, running at about 25 minutes. Lots of stuff going on here. I really enjoyed the promo package. I think that Roman Reigns' family character, the head of the table character, such a transformation, and I never expected. I remember seeing, I think it was Adam Blompier's booking of Roman Reigns, and I remember hearing his vision of it, and I was stood there going, because he managed to basically say, you don't need to turn Roman heel. Like, this is how you could have booked him, and he could have been a babyface. And from how he expressed that, I was stood there going, yeah, you've convinced me. And I always thought that was going to be the case with Roman after that. So the fact they went heel was, I was stood there going, oh, we finally got what we wanted. It's a little bit late, but yeah, no, I'm really enjoying it. He seems to have this distinctive and empowering aura about him, and I love that. He's able to be this unique character that isn't molded by the WWE machine, and it's fantastic. So, and one thing I loved about this storyline as well was that you have Roman Reigns, who is ahead of a table. He's thinking about family, and you've also got Kevin Owens, who since he debuted in NXT was all about prize fighter. It's providing for his family. So it was like these two entities that were in the same boat, and they're just clashing. And yeah, it was. I really enjoyed this match. I thought there was quite a few spots. I'm conscious I've spoken a bit too much, so I mean, there were quite a few spots. How about we run through them?
This is the downside. I am gonna pull a Ryan during Sasha and Charlotte. I keep saying Charlotte, Carmella, sorry. Where your memory was a little misplaced, because mine's the same for this match. Now, I agree with your points. Roman Reigns being heel is perfect. I'm not sure if it's too late, because I couldn't imagine if this tribal chief would have worked a couple of years ago. Now he's got the world title history and things like that. It works now. But it's the same. As much as it's ironic that it was his family member that began this whole idea when The Rock was the Rocky Maivia, and the crowd were chanting, "Die, Rocky, die." So what did WWE do? Turn him heel. It doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to work, but it worked in that essence, because then he was able to focus in on his heel character, and then he became extremely likable again. Roman needed it. Roman's never been a bad wrestler. He's just not been anything too special, if that makes sense. He's had some good storylines, and that's why he's been able to be bumped up and pushed up the card. But this tribal chief thing will be what makes his career. And someone like Owens, who is such a lovable everyman, even with the history he's had as a heel and as a despicable heel, you do believe in this babyface push. So him and Owens together was perfect. The match, however, I don't remember much of, and I watched it. It's not the kind of match I was distracted by other things. I did watch the match, and I can remember some spots. I remember the cart. I remember the finish. But to be fair, most of it was a bog standard last man standing match. The one spot that I will mention before I let you guys talk about the bulk of the match that really annoyed me was the spot in the upper sections of the Thunderdome, where Reigns threw Kevin Owens off, because it was the exact same spot that had happened before. Now, I've got nothing wrong with callbacks or anything like that, but surely what you would have done is have Kevin turn the tables on Roman and throw him through as a subversion of what happened. But no, it was exactly the same spot. And my mind boggles as to why they went that route again, because Kevin was stretching out then on Raw, SmackDown.
Yeah.
SmackDown, sorry.
SmackDown.
You might remember that. He was stretching away at that time. Yeah. Are you doing a Shrek reference during a wrestling? There you go. Okay.
You caught me.
Nice. But yeah, he was stretched away during the first time, whereas this time he was able to get to his feet, which again made the first one look weak, and my mind boggled. But that's my thoughts on it. I didn't hate the match, but I don't remember much of it because it was the match. So I'll let you guys talk about the meat of the match, we say.
Yeah, well, with the Reigns character, I personally feel it's better late than never. This was the character. I mean, like, there's kind of promo work from his NXT days where he was a kind of smug character, and it worked. He was like this kind of smug money man almost, and it's like, and then we see him as this badass in the Shield, and it's like everyone just wanted that badass, but it was almost like they kind of thawed him out a wee bit. They didn't let him go full on badass with baby face push. It was almost like, well, no, we just need to pull you back a wee bit. And fans could tell that I don't think he was ever truly invested in it. His hands were tied for a lot of stuff, whether it was his promo work or what he was doing. And that's why with a lot of things, even like, as we've mentioned before, when it came down to Reigns and somebody else in that Rumble, you're like, oh, Reigns is going to win, isn't he? It's almost like that. But this persona that he's came out with, that smugness that he's got, you just look at him and go, you've been 100% natural now. This is you doing your thing, and you've got the ball and you're running with it, as they love to say, and it's just working. He has been one of the two best things in wrestling since he's came back, and it just works. My issue with the match at times was this, and it kind of goes back when Kevin Owens went through the tables. It's almost like everything Reigns put Owens through, he kind of did wait till towards the 9 count, but he almost felt like he got up and then he had this surge of energy, as where then it looked like Reigns was overselling for him because he kept falling down with every attack he had, and it was like, well, I'd say hitting a guy with a golf cart is going to be a lot worse than some of the stuff he kind of did with you, but it was what it was. Like, I had to kind of pause it because I was curious what was happening, because when he got handcuffed by Kevin Owens, I thought that was really cool. It kind of goes back to the handcuffs of the cage. I did see the ref counting it, and he stopped at 6. He almost grabbed his shirt like this, as if somebody in the back was saying, stop counting because they're not getting the cuffs off in time. Because I was thinking, like, Heyman looks like he's proper struggling, and then all of a sudden there was no count. And then after, I don't know how many other seconds, Reigns managed to kind of like, he's kind of basically crouched, but he's got both feet firmly flat. So it's like, right, they can kind of sugarcoat it a bit now. But yeah, there was a lot of kind of spots like that. But the overall match I actually enjoyed, because it's what it had to be, and the promo leading up to it really got me invested in it again. Because one hand I was like, oh, Kevin Owens again. I've seen this match a few times now, but there was something about it that I actually enjoyed that felt a little bit new, because they were just throwing everything they had at each other. The match was just about hatred now more than anything, and I felt like it did come across. I felt like the right winner did, and I hope that's the end of the rivalry now. I'd hate to see and maybe get another match as a filler before Mania. I'm like, no, this is where you need to start building something else. But for what it was, I felt like it worked, and it was an enjoyable match for the best part, especially because I just think Reigns is nailing it. I think he oversold a wee bit compared to the way Owens was selling his work. But the minor gripes, but overall, for the hard-hitting match that it was, I thought it was actually decent. It was better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of moments in it. I think, like I say, when I saw the golf cart, I instantly thought back to the Stadium Stampede from AEW. I was just, I literally just went, ha, really loudly. So it's just like, yeah, it just kind of comedic. The forklift, I was really anxious about. I know that certain forklifts do hold a decent amount of weight, but I was sitting there going, what if that topples? And I was going, oh, but the swanton from Owens was really cool. I love that burst of energy that he had just before. Like, he literally just had enough, and he was just beating the hell out of Reigns. The handcuff spot was unfortunate. I think we should avoid maybe doing that in the future. But they pulled it off really well. But yeah, I think I remember the spots. But certainly we've had better last man standing matches. Case in point, the Triple H Shawn Michaels one at Royal Rumble 04. It's a back reference to part one. So, but yeah, I like I said, I think Reigns, Kevin looked really good in defeat, and Reigns still being chief at the table. Every win is just putting more stock in him and becoming a dominant force. And fair play, it was an entertaining match, but I would agree with yourself, Aaron, that memorable, maybe not so much.
Yeah, and the finish as well keeps Reigns as that heel. Do you know what I mean? He had to knock out a ref to make sure he got the win. Otherwise, Owens was winning. Do you know what I mean? So he's playing the part really well.
Yeah. Fair play. It's all good. And whoever Roman is against, I welcome it. I think this is going to be the first WrestleMania, I think, where I feel more invested in Reigns than I have before.
Yeah.
So which is good. I never thought that would be I thought it would eventually come, but it's just refreshing that this is finally the moment, and I'm looking forward to a Reigns match. So, yeah, I'm glad he's got this character, and fair play to both guys. So, yeah, we unless you had any final comments on the match, I think we will conclude with the final Rumble. Okay, let's go. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll do them in a couple of segments, and we'll just kind of talk about each wrestler individually. Obviously, for select ones, I'll just name one and kind of go from there. So let's talk about the first two entries. We've got Edge and Randy Orton. Edge in at number 1, Randy at number 2. So obviously we had this rivalry from WrestleMania 36. It kind of felt like it was the eventual confrontation that they had, like match 3. But unofficially match 3. Yeah, I mean, they both had. The beginning was a bit like they had the brawl outside, which I could say, I can understand, tensions boil over. Then obviously Randy got injured for most of the match. Well, he was injured and had to be taken to the back. And immediately I was kind of thinking, like kind of past Rumbles. Like I remember when Austin and Vince at the 99 Rumble spent most of it in the back. And, if you were watching the pay-per-view live in the arena, you're probably thinking, well, what the hell? I want to see Austin throughout the whole thing. And those at TV got the backstage segments. So, yeah, I think with it kind of had that feel to it, but it was still certainly, I think with Edge overall, actually, no, because obviously with these two are in the final 4. So maybe, unless you had any quick comments about the general.
I do have a point. One of my first points at the beginning of part 1 was my worry about the absence of fans affecting the Royal Rumble. As we've all said, up to this point, it hadn't affected negatively at all. May have been better in some places, potentially, but the show was running really good. If they had a crowd, they should not have announced Edge is returning, and they should not have announced who was 1 and 2, because you could have imagined the ladies and gentlemen, the number 1 in the Royal Rumble. You think you know me? Crowd goes mental. Oh, Edge is back. Yes, we can imagine what's going to happen, but yes. And then the music calms, and then I hear voices, and then I was like, oh my god, ah! And then it's that feud again. It would have been a double pop. Obviously, not WWE's fault. It's not like WWE asked someone in China to eat a bat. It's not their fault. So they swung with what they went with. As much as I didn't like the fact that they had announced the 1 and 2, I see why. They haven't got a live crowd. They want people to tune in. Oh, by the way, if you tune in, Edge and Randy Orton starting a Royal Rumble. Oh my God. That's my main thought on that.
Yeah.
This makes me feel like the Charlotte Lacey thing. This is the way they did Edge and Orton in this match was, I feel like, was the right way compared to what they did with Charlotte, because this was just that you knew their history, you felt there was that unfinished business, and it showed. And then even when people started coming in for the Rumble, they almost still found their way to each other. Like it wasn't until Randy got injured at the hands of Edge that it was almost like they took Randy away, and it protects the kind of two of them, and it lets like whoever tackle the match when the other one's dealing with their injury. But this was like the right way to deal with that rivalry, I felt like, compared to the Charlotte Lacey. It just felt awkward. This was, I thought they nailed that part.
The inclusion's quite good as well, because harking back to what I mentioned with Royal Rumble 2001, when you had Triple H and Stone Cold continue their feud into the Rumble, you've got both Edge and Randy Orton that can do exactly the same. Elimination Chamber or whatever the next pay-per-view is, you will have Randy Orton versus Edge. That seems to be a given at this point. And then after that feud, win, lose or draw, Edge is going to go on to WrestleMania to do what he will do, as we see later on in the match. It happens. And Randy Orton is quite clearly going to go into a feud with Bray Wyatt heading into WrestleMania. So having that here keeps the two of them busy until their eventual WrestleMania feuds. Randy Orton with The Fiend and Edge, seeing, as we see in this match, what will happen with him at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I don't think I can comment more than that. I think you guys did, I think it was just that beginning bit, but obviously with Randy being injured initially, obviously we'll come back to that because it does play a factor in. So next I'm going to read off 3. So Sami Zayn, Mustafa Ali, and Jeff Hardy. Jeff had a nice spot because obviously it was Sami, Orton, and Mustafa ganging up on Edge. You had, Mustafa kind of the whole, "You're taking my spot. They took her jobs." So
he's played that really well.
Yes.
And it comes off authentic as well, because we can believe it and say yes. Someone with a part-time basis.
Yeah. Like him attacking Edge made sense because of that, and it's the same way we spoke about Goldberg and that, how these people are almost taking people more deserving spots. The fact that they worked that kind of angle into this match, and it was like a 3-4-on-1 on Edge. Edge was in a handicap match. It really worked for me.
On a quick note with Mustafa Ali, Retribution is an awful angle. One of Retribution is Shane Thorne, who I think is an incredible talent. Dominik Dijakovic, I think, is incredible as well. Mustafa Ali, however, is the best part of Retribution. Now, I'm not sure if you guys know this. I'm a fountain of knowledge of wrestling. The Daniel Bryan Kofi Kingston angle for WrestleMania when Kofi Kingston first won his title, before Mustafa Ali became injured, that was his spot. Mustafa Ali was due to face Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania for the world title.
Wow.
Because he had his big thing in the Royal Rumble, he had his big thing at Elimination Chamber, and they were going to lead into Mustafa Ali and Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. Whether the result would have been the same, I don't know. Mustafa got injured, and that's when Kofi was moved in. And it worked quite naturally, and we had an amazing outcome from it. But yeah, so Mustafa Ali's annoyance at people taking his spot, whether it's legends or not, does come from quite realistic backgrounds, and it adds to how the character works. But looking at the Rumble and the review, this spot and the heels beating up Edge was good, made Edge look good. But for me, It happened. Move on. I hate to say it. Nothing against the guys that were involved, but yeah, it was just a thing that moved the Rumble on.
Yeah, and with Jeff, I think when Jeff came in next, it was just nice because obviously you had that kind of heritage in regards to this. So yeah, moving on, I will say we've got Dolph Ziggler, who I didn't realize. It was good to have him back. I haven't really seen him on TV much, so it's always good to have Ziggles in there. So yeah, I mean, I don't think we can comment really much else. You only eliminated one person, and that's all I can recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we had Shinsuke Nakamura, who is a previous Royal Rumble winner. Him going in, he looked better than I've seen because he has obviously gone through, going through the mid card, in that way, and it looks like he's had kind of a revival in himself, and hearing the classic Nakamura WWE music without the rapping over the top, it's still lovely to hear because I'm still screaming there in the front room, and my fiance's telling me, try to keep it down. So yeah, it's but yeah, it was yeah, I think Shinsuke, I can't remember any specific spots from him, unfortunately, just because, but I think it was nice. It was nice to just see him there and how he was presented.
Completely agree. There's been a little bit of confusion with Shinsuke because obviously they did the not random but the sudden face turn, and we didn't mention this in the Roman Kevin Owens match. But obviously they had Adam Pearce potentially going to face Roman at Royal Rumble, and part of that was the attack on Shinsuke in the Gauntlet match, which basically led to what felt like a face turn for Shinsuke. But then at the, not to try and be culturally insensitive here at all, I can't remember what it was called, but the Indian spectacle they did quite recently, very recently in fact, Shinsuke played a heel on that show. And I know that wasn't filmed long ago, so it wasn't like old footage. And it was quite confusing as to why they had Shinsuke playing the heel when he'd had that face moment. So when his music hit, I did think to myself, okay, is he face, is he heel? And I don't think he played to either either side of the coin in this match. He was Shinsuke. He didn't do anything heelish. He didn't do anything that I'd call he wasn't beaten down by a group of guys at once. He was there, did what he did best, and then yeah.
Yeah, I think with it, it's because we know him from in seeing clips from his New Japan days. He's just got that personality, and you can't. It's infectious. You're just there going. You literally do the movies. You're just like, come on. You literally whatever. That whole movie is like a metaphor for my what I want from Shinsuke. Just come on, give him more. Oh no, wait, that's Ryback. Whoops. So luckily, no. I will say now, spoiler, no Ryback return. But
don't say that. Everyone's going to click off the video now.
Oh, no. Well, if so, thank you very much for watching. Stay, we've got more to come. So, moving on to the next entry, Carlito, which was completely a surprise.
Yeah.
Man, is he in good shape?
Oh, yes, yeah. He was on the Netflix wrestling show Glow.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you guys have watched it. It's a great show. Anything to do if you've ever watched anything about Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. He was on the show along with Chavo Guerrero and another wrestler who I'm not familiar with. And he is shirtless in one of the scenes, I think in season 2. He is absolutely jacked. If anything, he's slimmed down a bit since then to now. But it's not a bad thing. He looks a lot healthier now. Great appearance in the Rumble. And considering the controversy recently around Carlito and WWE, it was perfect. Because I'm not sure if you guys remember, but Carlito was announced to be on the Raw special they had recently. I can't remember if it was Legends or whatever. He was announced, but never appeared on the show. And this was because WWE had contacted Carlito to appear, and he agreed, but then found out nearer the time he would just be part of a backstage segment. There'd be no wrestling, no physical interference, and he said, "No, why would I do that?" So to have him in the Rumble being physical, having the moments he did, even leading to the appearance on Raw the following night, was perfect. Absolutely perfect. I also love the tease with the apple. Obviously, as much as all the wrestlers have been tested and are COVID-free, the
I always think of that.
in a COVID era would have been very, very controversial. So I like the fact that Shinsuke took the apple and then the two of them just fought. And again, going off of when we said before, like with Victoria in the Women's Royal Rumble, having Carlito there, just straight away, Carlito, Shinsuke, no one, I don't care who you are, would have ever thought in the Rumble, two people you want to see wrestle, Carlito and Shinsuke. But you see it in front of you and you think, wow. And it was really good, as well as everyone that Carlito then mixed with in the Rumble. So Carlito's inclusion was incredible for me. I waffle on a lot, I'm sorry.
That's fine. Empowered man, I love it.
No, I thought he was a great wrestler to have. I was actually really surprised. He's not one I would have guessed absolutely at all. He was in incredible shape. I was actually surprised at how good he was looking. But yeah, what he added was perfect to the match. I loved the segment with Nakamura. It just worked. But yeah, no, it was just great to see him, and he felt like he hadn't really missed a beat, and he looked right at home, and it made me instantly remember all those kind of times when he was still in WWE that I actually go, do you know what, I quite miss him, wouldn't he? I think he could still do a job for WWE just now.
Yeah.
I'd love to see more of him.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think if he did come back for a couple of matches, I think he is on. I'm not too sure on his contract status, but I think there was talk that he would be coming back for maybe a little bit more than just the Rumble, which would make sense. So, I mean, if he is back, I mean, welcome back, Apple or not, fair play.
He appeared on Raw the following night, so you would believe that there is more coming, and if it is, then the Rumble was a great start for him.
Yeah. One thing with Glow, unfortunately, I haven't seen the Netflix series, but I do know a very obscure fact. A little bit of gaming in there. So I've forgotten the name of the person in question, but one of the original Glow superstars starred in one of the worst games for the Panasonic 3DO console, which is Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, which isn't even full motion video. It's just basically a PowerPoint of very low quality. It's if you check it out on YouTube, Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, it's an E movie. It's not even a B or a C or a D movie. It's yeah. That was when, and it was like meant to be like a full motion video game, and it wasn't even really full motion video. It was literally just PowerPoint. So yeah, a little fun fact there. But I'm sure, if I'll have to actually see her in matches in Glow. But yeah.
On a side note, for going for Glow again, I do highly recommend Glow for any wrestling fan, not only because Chavo appears, Carlito appears now and then. One of the female wrestlers in it is played by Karma, WWE's former Karma, and Awesome Kong from TNA. And admittedly, it took me about 4 episodes to actually realise that I went, holy hell, that's incredible. So yeah, highly recommend Glow.
Cool. Add to list. Thank you very much. So, yeah. So, I'll definitely take the recommendation. I'll have to bump up the list because the entertainment list is always like infinite.
Always.
So, let's rack through some other stars. So, next was Xavier Woods. Only a brief appearance, but again, solid dude. Big E. Big E was very, very. I loved Biggie in this. Not only his personality coming out, but he's looking stronger. He's got that IC belt in his wing, and I feel like I'm starting to see him transition into a heavyweight role, and it's just a matter of time, whether it be a year or two. And I've said, when he drops the IC belt and he goes towards the heavyweight, I want a slow burn. I'd love like a Kofi or a Daniel Bryan moment. I know that's asking for a lot, but even anything remotely in terms of that progression, I'll be happy with. It's a bit of a shame of how he is eliminated, because he was eliminated by Omos, who is AJ Styles's bodyguard, and Omos wasn't even in the match, which leads me to my second point. I feel that Royal Rumble participants should only be able to eliminate Royal Rumble participants, because what's stopping any other faction's members from just going into the ring and just going, all right, you go, out you go.
Yeah.
You know, you think Mustafa Ali, he could have brought any member of Retribution down and just cleaned house for the entire match. So I think it sets a bad precedent. I know it's meant to be, making AJ look, almost look strong and that, but I just think personally it works against them, especially since Omos also eliminates another WWE superstar, one that I wouldn't have seen go towards the title picture, but I just think it's a bit of a disappointment, really, because I think even though Big E was in it for about half an hour, I would have liked to have seen him go on a little bit longer personally.
Yes. Going off of your point, a tables match, they bent the rules sometimes, but a table match, the standard is usually you have to put your opponent through a table. It can't be that they have gone for, say, Jeff Hardy goes for a swanton, and the opponent moves and he puts himself through. Majority of the time in a table match, that wouldn't count. You have to physically put your opponent through a table. So to your point, yes, it should be you can only be eliminated by someone in a Rumble. And with AJ's bodyguard, who I have learnt his name 30 seconds ago, thank you very much, Ryan. With AJ's bodyguard, he had the moment where he caught AJ. That should have been his contribution to the match, stopping AJ's elimination. AJ could then, I don't know, maybe the guy pulls down the rope and AJ then throws the guy over. That would have made more sense. But I agree. The same when I said with Naomi landing on the floor and keeping her feet up, it makes everyone else look stupid for not doing it. It makes Mustafa Ali look ridiculous for not getting Retribution out, for anyone getting their tag team partner out to help. So yeah, I completely agree with you. Completely.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just, it's not that I'm not like sore about it, because I think Big E, there's still plans behind him, and I think he's still got a lot of, stock behind him. But yeah, it just felt a bit deflating, really, because he was one of the top eliminators of the Rumble.
Yeah.
So yeah. Unless you had any comments at all, Colin.
No, I mean, the elimination for him was cheap. I'd have liked to have seen a better, more convincing elimination on him that maybe kind of gave us a better idea of where his next rivalry is going to go for his title, or anything that's happened with his title kind of mesh in, with like Sami Zayn and stuff. But like overall, it was a bit disappointing to see him go out that way. I was kind of left wanting more, which I suppose in some ways is a good thing as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, if we go on to the next one, so going to rack out a couple more. So we have John Morrison, Ricochet, and Elias. Always love Ricochet's music. Like even when I heard him in NXT, I just love it. John Morrison was good in there for a little bit. Elias only lasted a little bit because at number 14 we had NXT's Damian Priest, who looked very good. I think he really got to showcase himself. I know there was that spot on the Rumble where Bad Bunny came in and caused a distraction, which I was just like, okay. I mean, Damian helped out and technically got the eliminations, which was good. And then obviously Bad Bunny did that jump from the top, but I think it helped obviously within the stock for Damian. There was certain stare-offs that he had that were really convincing. So yeah, I mean, any comments from you guys on Damian?
No, Colin, I'll let you go first. Sorry, Rod.
No, it's Damian. He just feels like a Baron Corbin to me. I just don't see where he's going to go with the transition that they put Baron Corbin through, because he was this lone wolf, and Priest reminds me so much of Baron Corbin in his early days before he went down the road that he's went, that I'm almost like, it was great. He got to really showcase, really show himself, and he looked good for it, but I'm almost like, where's he going to end up? Because I look at him and I just see so much of Corbin there that I'm like, I don't see any sort of longevity with you. I feel like I just don't know how he's going to be treated. That's my only worry, and how I couldn't get too excited about his kind of presence there. But for what he did and for the rubs that he got, I thought he did really well. I was really impressed with the Bad Bunny thing. Just because you brought it up, I was super pissed we never sort of got to see even a remote tease of Booker T coming into this. Again, you're telling me this guy was only at the Rumble to stand there and say can't. Do you know what I mean? Like, it would have made even more sense if he was one of the legends and Bad Bunny came down with him and then still had the same sort of impact that he eventually had. It would have just made more sense rather than, oh, he wrecked my laptop in my music centre. It was just, do you know what I mean? It's just like two huffy characters now, and it didn't work for me personally.
I agree. What you said about Damian Priest, I completely agree. I didn't think of the Baron Corbin comparison, but you're completely right. Damian Priest, it was great in the Rumble, and I think it's a perfect spot for him because he is established in NXT. He is rumored to be coming up to the main roster, and he had some great spots. But to your point, my point would have been it is just another big man. Yes, he's got the Archer of Infamy gimmick, but like Baron Corbin, ironically, and again, I love how you made the comparison because it fits what I was going to say even better. Once he is on the main roster, then what happens? Because in the Royal Rumble, he was special because he was an NXT star in a Rumble. If this was a year from now and he'd been on the main roster for a year, then what? So I'm intrigued to see where it goes. Personally, I'd like to see a Shawn Michaels Diesel kind of gimmick. Damian Priest could look after someone, say a Johnny Gargano, someone maybe not Ricochet because he's a great face, but someone like that, say a Miz, someone a bit smaller here. He can play the strong bodyguard role for, not like AJ and his guy. I've forgotten his name already.
Is it Omos?
Omos, thank you. Damian Priest could play that role, but besides that, I'm not sure. But in this Rumble, great inclusion. He had some great moments. My annoyance over the Bad Bunny spot is that the camera focused so much on so much on Bad Bunny, Miz, and Bobby Roode that Damian Priest's elimination is over here. So you see him eliminating the guys over the top, but it was not the focus of the moment. The focus of the moment was Bad Bunny, and I feel that takes away from the Rumble a bit. But the splash was good off the top. That's very hard to do if you've never taken a bump before. He did it in the right way. Miz and Roode were able to catch him. Not Miz and Roode. Morrison, sorry. I've got this thing in my head that Miz and Bobby Roode would make a great tag team, so I always do that. Sorry. Miz and Morrison were able to catch him nicely, so it looked decent. It was done, and then, the match moved on.
Yeah, I think it definitely, I think with Damien, I completely agree. I think it's something where he needs a bit of extra spice. He's got the ability. He does have the prowess. It's just he needs those opportunities now. And I mean, I think he got a win over the Miz on Raw recently after the Rumble. So it looks like a lot of stock in him. We'll wait to see what happens. Hopefully positive things, of course. So obviously after that we did have the Miz, of course. We also had Matt Riddle. I refuse to call him Riddle because his name is Matt Riddle.
Thank you.
So I hate it when names are, I should have said Biggie Langston, but he's been Biggie for so long now.
I was going to say Biggie Langston is when taking a surname works because Big E is still a great name. Yeah. But when you take Buddy Murphy and you take Murphy off, or you take Matt Riddle and you take Matt off, no. Cesaro was another one that worked because he was Antonio Cesaro. Cesaro works on its own. Sheamus, when he wrestled in most parts of England and Ireland, he was Sheamus O'Shaughnessy. So Sheamus works. So there are times it does work, but I'm sorry, no, not Riddle. Matt Riddle. Don't care what you tell me.
Yeah.
So,
I'm completely the same. It's just, but he after, because he was on, when he came up, he was made to look like a bit of a fool on Raw, but he got in, he lasted a while. He lasted over half an hour. I mean, he only got one elimination, but he looked great. He had a great encounter with the next entrant number 17, which is Daniel Bryan, who was a hot favorite to win. So there was that nice moment where they both kind of gelled with each other, and they just kind of like started kicking and hitting each other. Love that moment. And with Daniel Bryan as well. I kind of saw him as, he could get into the, the final section kind of thing. And with Matt as well, I could have seen him in that position, but obviously I was disappointed in that regard. But yeah, both look strong. I mean, I can't remember any spots from them specifically, but did you guys pick up on anything that was, entertaining?
No, I mean, you obviously hit the nail on the head with Brian and Riddle. I'm not actually a huge fan of Riddle. I just don't like the character. I'm just not invested in him at all. But the spot with him and Daniel Bryan, I thought was really good. And I'd love to see more of that in longer matches of just them two, because right now in SmackDown, like, Daniel Bryan has been doing great, elevating some other talent that need it, people like Cesaro and stuff like that. And I think him and Riddle could do a great job. I think they've got, the technical stuff down there where they could put on a hell of a match.
Imagine a 1 month TV plan for them. Oh, I'd definitely watch that. So yeah, we'll quickly run on. So we had Kane come in as a surprise entrant. I think they said it was his 18th appearance in a Royal Rumble match, which it's almost kind of become his thing now. He's like, he's turned into a county mayor, and he comes back for his one time of the year to do the Rumble. It's almost like the streak, but in a parallel universe, except a parallel match. But yeah, he got 2 eliminations and he was only in there for 2 minutes. Eliminated by Damian Priest. So again, plays in Priest's favor because he's eliminated a legend. So fair play to him. We then had King Corbin, who I was just, as soon as I stood there, it's got to that point now where he's become a jester, and I just go, but yeah, King Corbin in a similar situation, 2 eliminations, only lasted a couple of minutes, but yeah, he was there for it. Otis was in there next at number 20. He was in there for a minute. He did a worm. That was it. I heard that one particular superstar was meant to be in the match, but they got pulled. I think it was Jey Uso, but he was pulled because he wasn't cleared to wrestle. So Otis was put in there in his place. So I think with Jay in there, I think he probably would have maybe lasted a bit longer. I know he's been proving himself as a single star. So yeah, I think with Otis in there, it was nice. See a nice worm.
I actually really like Otis. I actually want to see more of him. I feel a bit bad for him because of that initial push, and it's almost like Vince has just went cold on him and took the Money in the Bank briefcase off him. I just feel like recently, even kind of in the Rumble, he's been getting done a bit dirty. I actually like his character. He's got a lot of energy, a lot of life, and I think he could be a really fun character if given some truly good opponents and decent time to show off, because he can get the crowd on his side, as he's shown when live crowds were there as well. But there's just something about this Otis character that I really like, and I actually want to see more of it and see how well he can actually do.
Yeah, I think there is a side of him. He's definitely got a personality, so I would agree with you in that sense. I think in terms of because I know he was obviously a Money in the Bank winner, and I think obviously like you say, Colin, the dirty situation, like having that opportunity and then being taken away, or choosing to do it differently, like the tag titles, and then having it put away. So yeah, I just feel like it's a shame, and I don't think it's Otis's fault. It's just the system. And as Lonely Island have always told us, you can't trust the system. What? So yeah, so its inclusion, it was a nice moment, but again, like with the previous Rumble, you're going to have those singular spots that will only last for a short period. So and next was Dominic Mysterio for Royal Rumble debut. He was only in there briefly, but yeah, I mean, he, I've seen he looked really good. I think he eliminated King Corbin.
Yes.
Which is pretty good. I think it was an interesting little spot. I can't remember the logistics, but it was from what I remember, it was because I remember there was like oh yes, Dominic eliminated Corbin. So yeah, that was a cool moment. yeah, like really impressed by Dominic. I know he's still, still becoming new, but he's already got that the heritage with his father, who, spoiler alert, comes in the Rumble a bit later. Oh wait, did I say that out loud? Oh whoops. So yeah, Any comments, guys?
Dominic, I like how they're handling him. They're not pushing him too quickly. They're not giving him too much. They're letting him mature. Definitely his father's son. Definitely. He's different in size. He's more, I don't want to say human, but he's more average size, whereas Ray's quite short. But he's definitely got his father's speed, his father's work rate. The first thing I ever remember about Dominic is when him and Ray was feuding with Brock. And Dominic, this is before he'd actually signed with WWE proper, took an F5. And I remember watching the bump and going, that was an incredible bump and one of the safest F5 landings I've seen in a long time. So that was already a great precursor to his career. His feud with Seth Rollins was great, but his inclusion here in the Royal Rumble was a bit of a shock for me. I'd actually forgotten he existed because they haven't done much with him lately. As soon as he came out, I went, oh, of course, holy hell, yeah. And it was a nice inclusion, nice moment for him. But as you said yourself, he wasn't in it for long. Didn't have a chance to make much of an impact, but what he has been doing has been solid. Very impressed.
No, definitely. I think, we'll kind of leave it there. We'll just quickly run through these others. So next to 22, we have Bobby Lashley. Bobby looked really, really good. I'm glad that he's back. I just really want him to have a world championship opportunity by now. I think he's kind of proven his worth. And plus it took 4 people to eliminate him. So, he got 3 eliminations in. I think he did a solid job. Next, we had a surprise appearance from Hurricane Helms, but he got eliminated rather quickly. Over you go, is what it is. In number 24, in probably the highlight moment of the Rumble, was Christian's return.
Yes.
And at this point, with Edge, lasting, having, the odd moment there, and just hearing his music, and you just kind of see him, he's looking exhausted on the floor, and you just see Edge just cracking just this slight smile, and then you have him come in, and you just see them, just he beats up, keeps on, attacking, and then he sees Edge, and he just gives him a great big hug, and I was sitting there going, oh, my heart in the feels.
It was a great moment. Absolutely great moment.
Yeah, it felt authentic. It's like the first time that they'd shared a ring in that way for over 10 years. So it was a great moment in there. And any comments from you guys on that apart from?
You've hit the nail on the head, absolutely big time. I mean, that was emotional. It felt like real emotion from the two of them, especially the way it was zooming in on Edge's face constantly. I just thought this is a real moment, and it was truly special and great. And to see them straight off the bat do a kind of tag team move, I think it was Matt Riddle was trying to get in their bromance, and it was it just for me, I thought it was perfect.
Yeah, definitely. I think I don't know if there's anything to come back to, but we'll move on to the next one anyway. So, which is entry number 25, which was AJ Styles, very much playing a kind of reserved role, not so much the attacker, but more kind of staying alive, especially with the assistance of Omos. So, I mean, like, I think with AJ, he played a bit more of a minimalistic role, not too minimalistic, but he had his moments in there. It just felt, it wouldn't be in a position where, for example, like Big E or Damian Priest, where he's having his time to shine. I think it was an opportunity for those other guys to kind of take that take that opportunity, I should say. And then Rey Mysterio next, again, just consistency. The one thing I was just stood there and going, this is turning into like Lethal Weapon levels of gratuitous advertising, was when they advertised the Victoria beer for his mask.
Oh yeah.
I was like, I'd put up with the WWE game things and the free things, but as soon as I heard that, I was just stood there going, God damn it. What do we need now? Some seductive saxo? That would be great, Every time you hear bricks, be a perfect drinking game if the Royal Rumble wasn't a drinking game in itself anyway. There was a there was a great set of rules on Heelbook. I remember on Heelbook's Facebook page. I was very insane with that. Obviously, I couldn't drink for the evening, but always great to see the rules from there. So.
The joy of the Heelbook drinking game, as they've recently relaunched, as they used to do with all pay-per-views. I'm pretty sure if you ever were to actually follow along, you would be in a coma by the end of the night. My God.
Should come with a warning.
I'm pretty sure that's the point. Because he's heelish. It's your fault, not his.
I like that. But yeah, I think, certainly with that, it was what it was. Yeah, I think quickly running through, we'll go through quickly. We've only got a few left. So we've got Sheamus who came in. He was came in. Cesaro came in. There's a nice moment where they had the bar, and then obviously Cesaro turned on him, and I think Sheamus was like, "What are you doing?" It's like, and then I just heard Cesaro go, "Every man for himself," and starts like swinging him around and taking away. God damn, Cesaro needs to win a title. He needs an established title. I don't care. Just get him on the ladder and then get him to the heavyweight division now. He has shown himself to be a wrestling workforce, and he has the personality there. Just get him up there now. Do it. Do it.
Absolutely. He could have some great matches with Reigns. Like the way Reigns is right now, I'd like to see them two kind of heavy hitters go at it. I think that could be really, really good, especially with them both being on SmackDown. I think that, but you're right. Like I felt he was getting a push that I almost expected more from him in the Rumble, but it was at some point they've just got to pull the trigger on him, because he would walk into any other wrestling promotion and be top tier stuff. So I don't see how he's not getting this push, because he's paid his dues as far as I'm concerned.
Great.
I don't want to class any superstars as the next Kofi Kingston, because no wrestler should be like that. But if you look at Kofi Kingston and the years he put in before he won his first world title, to me, if there was a next Kofi Kingston, it's Cesaro.
Ooh, that's a good way of thinking about it.
Yeah, that man deserves a push for the gold. Never necessarily just saying, yes, he deserves an immediate title run, because sometimes these things just don't work out, unfortunately. But no, I definitely think he deserves a push, a big push.
Yeah. If there was when the live real crowds are allowed in, he would get such a pop for that. Like Kofi's,
exactly.
I totally agree with that.
I think he's
Oh god, yeah, he has. He definitely has. Just to go off a point that Colin, you and I were talking about before we went on, started recording, about the King of the Ring. If they were to bring King of the Ring back, Cesaro should be a shoo-in to win.
Yeah, if they do it right. None of this King Cesaro stuff. No. He gets the trophy, he gets the accolades, and then gets the push. Do you know what I mean? Think how the old school stuff.
We've talked about a lot of things that we're going to need to do in the future, but we're definitely going to do it how I would book series. And it's going to be Cesaro. Cesaro, you do the King of the Ring tournament, you do the longest tournament you can think of, span it over a couple of months, have Cesaro win, comes out, and there's the staff, the scepter, the throne. Cesaro says, I don't want any of that. I don't want the title of King of the Ring. I want the Universal or World title. Boom, star made.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Give him that Austin 316 feel.
Yeah.
I've just got Steven Stills in my head going, okay, I'm getting tingles.
We're going to have to make out, because you know I love Scott Pilgrim. Colin's already mentioned Dragon Ball Z, and that's got me on one side warm. Come on.
I'll behave. I'm sorry, Aaron, I'll behave myself.
Anyway, so what number was Cesaro then? Cesaro was the last one in.
28. We got two more. Okay. So we had a returning Seth Rollins, which obviously just coming. Obviously the paternity leave was obviously shorter than the maternity leave. So
with Becky, a lot of people expected Becky to come back. She was even trolling the fans. As a father myself, I know that childbirth can take a lot, so I don't think Becky would be ready for a while. As much as Physically, she may be in shape. Mentally, I'm not sure straight away. So it's a good thing not to bring her back. Seth, however, obviously physically unchanged by being a father, besides maybe really tired. So it was the right time to bring him back. My biggest annoyance with the Royal Rumble was Seth Rollins' inclusion. And it's not the fact he was in the match. It was the fact that for anyone like myself who likes the little nitpicky things, the last time we saw Seth Rollins and Edge in a ring together, Seth had Edge over a Money in the Bank briefcase ready to curb stomp him while he was trying to get John Cena to bring back the Authority. And as much as that was quite a few years ago, I would have loved to have seen just something of Edge being like, you. Just a little something between the two of them that was more than a little couple of punches in a corner. Didn't happen. And again, I'm nitpicking here, but I would have loved to have seen that just for continuity's sake.
No, I agree. Continuity does help.
No, that would have been a good shout rather than just like saying to the other wrestler saying it's like, you know, trying to gang up in like Edge and be like, they've had their time, it's our time. They could have tweaked that a wee bit further rather than do the whole legend stealing a push. Like they for a lot of fans that have followed the wrestling, they could have just that would have been icing on the cake if they just went that one wee step further.
Yeah. Definitely. And obviously the last person we had was Braun Strowman. Now, interestingly, both Seth and Braun managed to eliminate 3 people each, but obviously that was part of our final 4 that we got, which was Seth Rollins, Braun Strowman, Edge, and Christian. So the one thing I will say at this point was I think it was at this point, it was probably a little bit about 10 minutes before that I thought Edge is definitely going to win this, because the commentary wouldn't stop going on about Edge's length of time. And it wasn't just the odd occasion. I get it. Sometimes when you're in the number one still in there, they'll reference it once, maybe twice, but it was constant, not like every 2 minutes. It was more frequently than I could count. And I just kind of thought, Edge is winning this. They can't say this enough and then, you know, just kind of throw that away. So immediately I kind of saw, okay, so Christian's going to get eliminated somehow. And, you know, Seth could get the opportunity. Braun could maybe get it. But Edge seemed like I think if they got Edge to that point, there was no point that they were going to kind of track back on that.
Yeah.
So, so Braun, let me have a quick look at this. So, so Christian gets eliminated by Seth. And then Braun gets eliminated by Edge as well as Seth, and we pretty much think that's it. You know, we're thinking Edge is back. Then out of nowhere, Randy Orton comes in and RKOs, and suddenly that fear that WWE's gone back to their old ways has sunk in, and Randy's about to chuck him over, but Edge, being the ultimate opportunist, turns it around, throws him over, and wins the 2021 Men's Royal Rumble. A beautiful moment. I think the one thing that the fact that when because he's going to WrestleMania, that's a fact. But the fact that when he's going to be at WrestleMania this year, it would have been exactly 10 years since he last competed at the event, which I think the fact that he's got a world title, plus the fact that he had to vacate the title originally, it's a beautiful story. You know, it's about as, you know, continuity well as the whole My Chemical Romance reunion. The fact that they said, oh yeah, the Danger Days album set in 2019, and what we have a reunion in 2019. You gotta love continuity. So what did you guys think of the win? I'll go over to Colin because I know I've been a little bit of a talkative on this side. Colin, what did you think of Edge's win and your thoughts?
I feel conflicted with it. It was good to see him win. I like the story they've put in with it. Again, part of me kind of harkens back. I mind the Hydro up here. Like I've seen Edge in Scotland. I've been to a live show with him there. You know, I just feel like he's had his time, even though I get the whole angle of it not being his choice. And if they do it right, I would like to see him back. I like it when wrestlers come back and they actually compete. They don't do like a Brock Lesnar and just show up and don't wrestle on TV. They only wrestle on pay-per-views kind of thing. And like, but at the same time, I don't want Edge to wrestle too much because he could be injury prone. I know he had that one bad injury with Orton, but I'm like, how far can you push his body? I mean, I think he must be like 47-ish type ages now. You don't want to push him too much that he doesn't get to end on his terms. Do you know what I mean? Because I think they're pushing to that. And if it ends up him getting his moment and getting the ride off into the sunset his way, then I think it will be a fantastic moment and well worth all of this. But at the same time, I look at the Rumble and I'm like, who else would I have picked? I don't know. I never thought of a clear winner in my head, just the way the kind of business is just now. I've seen Drew and Reigns as the champions, and I thought they're kind of just quite content. I don't see
established
who would knock them off at this minute of time. So I think for story purposes alone, I think the Edge, I think it's going to be a good story if it's done right, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
I can reassure you, Colin, because apparently after the Rumble, Edge said that he wasn't going to be a part-timer. He was going, if he needed to commit, then he would, which at least reassures us, because it means that he, at least if he's going to be a champion, he's going to commit himself, which is fantastic. Obviously, again, the concerns with his health, we want him to be okay. So even if he had to do like a promo a week, we all know Edge has always been solid at promos. He also has cut some absolute crackers, not funny wise. I mean, as in like absolutely. Yeah, so at least that's reassuring.
You could protect him in tag matches as well, if you build the story right. And because if he's competing, you're not going to get many people complain about that. He's here to do a job, and he's here to do what every other wrestler's doing. He's not here picking up a huge wage packet saying, I'll appear on TV now and again, but I'm only wrestling on pay-per-views kind of thing. Like, I hate that, but the fact that I believe Edge wants to wrestle week in, week out, whether he can, or will he get another injury, I wouldn't like to see that happen. So there's got to be a level of protecting him as well. And I think they'll do that so he gets that moment, because he more than deserves it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, unless we had any further comments, I mean, I think that's pretty much in the can. I mean, like, we've been speaking for almost 3 hours. It's incredible. We almost done the entire pay-per-view. Hopefully, it's wild.
You could either watch the Rumble for the 3 hours it's on, or listen to us for the exact same time.
No. This will be it. This will be the first WWE pay-per-view you can ever watch with like guest commentary.
Yeah.
Us talking about it while you watch it in the background. That's
it might be like out of sync, but it's still entertaining.
Oh, massively, yeah.
Maybe. So no, honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, gentlemen, especially in this format. It's nice to be able to vocalize, a love for wrestling in this format. And I think, with the Royal Rumble, it's always the most exciting time of the year, because it's the road to WrestleMania. It's always great in that regard. So, but yeah, before we do sign off, we'll just want to so with Edge, who do you see him facing, and who would you like to see him face? Would it be Drew as the WWE champion, or Roman as the Universal?
It's tough. Both have certain draws. Drew and Edge are quite similar. Different in many ways, but they're quite similar. Roman and Edge, you could already just throw in the Battle of the Spears to begin with, because both men utilize the spear quite well. To be fair, I don't have a pick. The strongest champion of the two at the moment out of Drew and Roman is Roman Reigns for me. So I feel personally that Roman will be better suited against an uber babyface, a Daniel Bryan, a Shinsuke Nakamura, a Big E, but I think that's a bit too early. So that leaves me thinking that Edge would be better suited with Drew. And it would be the first time in a long time we've had a face versus face world championship match. Because, of course, Drew being a serious babyface, as would Edge. But in all honesty, I don't think I could put any money on who he'd face at WrestleMania. It could be Roman, could be Drew.
It's all to play for. How about yourself, Colin? What are your thoughts?
I could see it being Drew more than anything. I think if I had to pick between the two, I'd pick more Drew, but that's just more selfishness because I'd love to see a WrestleMania with Reigns and Rollins, because the fact when Rollins came back to the Rumble, he still get the Messiah gig.
Yeah.
And I would just love to see the Messiah against the Tribal Chief. There's just something about that. I think they could proper, steal a show, and they know each other so well. But my dream match for Edge would be, and it's kind of been slightly teased already, but I'd love to see him go after Finn Balor in the NXT title, purely because it's something so fresh, and I think they could just work amazingly. I mean, Drew and Romans are great wrestlers, but Finn Balor for the wrestling side and what he does is just on another level. And I think him and Edge would be special to me. But part of me feels Drew, because I feel like Drew's the most likely one to drop it to someone like Edge to give him his moment. So I'm more siding realistically in my head. My head's telling me more Drew it's going to go towards.
Yeah. I was going to also say, in a very sinister fantasy booking, you could have added Goldberg in the House of Spears, not just the match of the Spears, the House of Spears. Yeah, but sorry.
No, I might not tune into that match just in the off chance that he walks out winner. They've made him lose once. Do you know what I mean? There's no guarantee he'll take 2 losses in the bouts.
I reckon you could probably edit it and you probably get away with it. You might cut out some big bits, but you'll get the match you want with just a little bit of editing.
Well done, yeah.
No, I think for myself, I think you guys have made some great points. I think I see WWE going down the match of the Spears. I would go for Drew or Balor, but I think either way, I think it's like you said, Colin. I don't think I can see anybody else in that picture currently, and I don't want Brock to be in the picture. I don't want Goldberg to be in the picture. I think this is Edge's time, and to be fair, if it was Drew, I think he would be understanding and kind of go, because they were in the WWE, when Drew was coming up in the mid noughties, they were I think they were on the same brand for a while. Edge was in the heavyweight scene and Drew was in the intercontinental scene when he first started out in WWE. So it would make sense they've had that kind of previous basic chat. I don't know their relationship that well, but yeah, I think if I had to pick one, I would probably go against Drew. I think that would be a great match. I think it also allowed Drew to be able to not be involved with these less than 5 minute matches, and actually give him a moment as well as Edge's moment of winning back the title. But
just when you said the 5 minute thing, I think that's the one good thing about Edge coming back. Unlike some people that like Goldberg and that, is that Edge will put in a shift.
Yeah,
like he can still go, and that's what makes any match that he goes into exciting, because you're going to get a match.
Yeah, definitely.
Agree.
I think as well, it's like you say, it's somewhere where I think it's just because of his past, because of the way that he was forced to retire. I mean, I remember seeing that episode of Raw, and man, it was difficult not to well up or have a lump in your throat. It was something that just came out of nowhere, not like an RKO, of course, and it was just so emotive because you could see in Edge's eyes, like, he didn't want to quit. He didn't want this to be a loss because he was on such a roll. He was dominating as a heavyweight champion. And I think because of that, I think he even vocalized, he said that he thought that he'd let people down. And to be fair, like, none of this is his fault. He's had a great career outside of wrestling as well, being involved in multiple TV shows. He's a father, a great husband. He's one of the most humble people, I think, in the industry. So pleasant. I have his documentary, and every now and then I'll out of all the ones I have, I'll tend to watch that one because he just comes across in such an authentic way and an honest way, and you tend to gravitate towards people like that, which is why, with knowing Edge's part-time schedule, I wouldn't have cared, because I would have wanted him to have that moment to say, you know what, I overcame the injury. that, took me out of wrestling for nearly a decade. I won the big title and I did it my way without the, and so I faced the final curtain. No final curtain for Edge just yet. Let him have his moment.
That's all you could ever want. The wrestlers, you always want them to kind of go out in their terms and have the ending that they want, so that probably makes that kind of retirement stage easier. It's probably the same with Christian. He probably wants to go out in his terms rather than not being. I think it was concussions that scuppered him, but like it's if this is how these guys get to go out in their terms, then I'm along for the ride to see it happen. It'll be great.
Yeah, well, the road to WrestleMania has begun. So I guess we'll wait to see what happens, but I think we're going to call it there. I think we're almost at 3 hours. Lots of things there. So first of all, if you have made it this far, I just want to say thank you very much for watching or listening. If you did like the episode, please consider giving us a like or drop a comment or subscribe to us. Anything like that would make us first of all, we'd appreciate it, but it also informs us if you want to see more content of this nature, because as you can see, we are very passionate fans of wrestling, and and yeah, we would love to talk more in this and be able to entertain you guys as well as give you our thoughts on these things. So but yeah, apart from that, I think do you guys have any final words over the pay-per-view? I think actually, before we go, let's just do a final overall view of what we thought of the Rumble. So let's start off with Aaron. Aaron, what were your overall thoughts of the pay-per-view as a whole?
As a kind of a small ending, Royal Rumble was amazing. It was everything it needed to be. It was a great start to the road to WrestleMania. A couple of little things here that annoyed me, but nothing that made me turn off the show. Royal Rumble 2021 is definitely a pay-per-view I would happily watch again. One I'd recommend for anyone. Trying to think of anything that stood out besides Bad Bunny's performance as being the negative, positive being obviously the cathartic Christian and Edge winning, Bianca Belair getting the shot she deserves. It was a great show, absolute great show. Can't recommend it enough. I wouldn't be able to give it a score, but I definitely 2 thumbs up, easily.
Nice. Oh, sorry, there we go. And how about yourself, Colin? Your thoughts?
Yeah, for a pay-per-view, I had no real hope on, and whatnot. I was thoroughly entertained. I think it's well worth a watch. It's almost, I feel like as the year will go on, I think it will be a hidden gem where it was just like, this was the start of 2021. They started it off really, really well, and they really impressed me and got me excited for this road to WrestleMania that we're on. And I'd highly recommend giving it your time, because it's well worth it.
Another 2 thumbs up for you?
Yes, 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, 2 thumbs up. Love it. I'm starting to get that in-betweeners in my head going, friends. And yeah, and just to end on my notes, I thought I kind of was like you guys. I kind of thought this was doomed to have a dark cloud over it, and what we got was a break of sunshine, and not just that, but it cleared the dark clouds. Well, most of them anyway. Like I say, there were some moments that weren't polished enough for me to say this is a definitive Royal Rumble pay-per-view. But I think they played it safe by having only a small number of matches, and a number of concentrated matches at that. The match of the night for me personally was the Women's Royal Rumble. Just felt like I said before, everything felt established. It was nice to see that anybody in that, in the match could have technically won, and I think it's that kind of openness that I liked about it that that made me appreciate it more as a match. The Last Man Standing match, it did its job. It had its spots, and it was very entertaining. Really enjoyed the progression of Roman Reigns, and the Men's Rumble was still good. It was. And for me, like I say, the satisfying moments were involving Edge and Christian, of course. So, yeah, definitely the same as you guys. Very excited for the road to WrestleMania, and I would give this a recommendation. Definitely check out the Women's Rumble match at the very least, and it gets a 2 thumbs up from me as well. So, Yeah. So and on that though, we will end this right here. So thank you very much again for watching, and stay tuned for more content here at SkyPunk Media. See you guys.
Cheers.